All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome, welcome. If you're watching on YouTube, welcome to the channel. I'm Ruxora, and today is all about Azurite C set 6 of Lorcana. And yeah, we're here. Set 5, I think, was pretty good. I was discussing that with people over the past couple of weeks, and got good receptions on that. But yeah, time for set 6. And yeah, kind of a sea themed. I don't really know the full lore of it. Don't really pay attention to that stuff. But yeah, we're gonna take a look at the full list of cards. We have it now on Dreamborn, which is really nice compared to the other times that I've done this. So we have all the cards ready and available to look at. And yeah, I can start kind of theory crafting and thinking about how we're gonna make use of these cards and how they're gonna impact the meta. Before we get into any of that stuff, if you enjoy the content, remember to like, comment, subscribe. Yeah, if you're looking for Lorcana content, whether on YouTube or I do stream on Twitch every once in a while here at Ruxora098 on Twitch. But yeah, make sure to subscribe so you can get notified when I go live, and follow as well. Yeah, so we're gonna. I've done this a couple times. We're now doing it in a different way now that I have it on Dreamborn, and we're just gonna go by commons and uncommons, I think, and then do rares, and still do it by color here. And they very nicely have it in order for me. They have amber in color order: amber, amethyst, emerald, ruby, sapphire, steel. So greatly appreciate that. Oh, this is really nice. I'm very excited to do this on Dreamborn. Doing this on some of the other clients, it has not been fun. You get to kind of zoom in and kind of go back out. I'm very excited to do it this way. But yeah, before we actually start evaluating cards, I did just want to revisit again. I like to show this off because I made this and I was like, hey, I think this is a really good way to kind of interpret cards. You know, I kind of deviated this from the limited resources from Magic the Gathering, their kind of grading scale, and I think it works really well here, just so people kind of understand what I mean if I say a card is good or bad, or a tech card, as we'll talk about. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit about limited in this case, because I played a little bit of limited. Not this set, obviously, but I played a lot of limited and know a lot of people aren't exactly up to speed on how to play limited and how to kind of evaluate cards for limited. And so I want to kind of add that in as well. So if there's a card that is really good in limited or might be relevant for limited consideration, I'll mention it as kind of like a side note. Won't really contribute to my grading, but I'll say, hey, this card's not for constructed. It's like a D or a C or whatever in constructed, but in draft it's really good, and I might mention that here and there. So yeah, but so for the grading scale here, we're going an A to F, and then there's kind of, again, there's that T grading scale at the bottom here. So A's, outstanding cards, some of the best cards in their colors. Cards that are just kind of good in every single scenario. They just can kind of be played and don't really require you. They don't really ask much of you. They just gonna come down, are efficient cards, and will provide some kind of benefit. So again, these are cards like Maui, Big Tank, Beast, Diablo, obviously, and a lot of these cards that you just play them and they're good. So yeah. And then on the contrary, a card that would be in the B range would be a really good card, but maybe more deck specific, and you know, maybe requires a little bit more kind of build around. So these are cards like Prince John, right? The discard cards, right? That card is not just is very powerful, but it doesn't just go in any deck. Kind of requires you to build around it. There are some situations where it can be weak. We also have cards like Fishbone Quill and Be Prepared. Very good cards in control decks, but obviously not great in just any mid-range deck. I guess Ruby Amethyst is kind of a control E deck, control-ish deck, but right, there's just cards that just you can't just put in, but if they're in the right deck, if they're enabled well, are really, really powerful. Then we get into the C range cards that are good and are definitely will see play or could see play. You know, it doesn't always turn out that way. Sometimes they're not enabled in the right way. Maybe the deck that they're supposed to go in doesn't work out well. But these are cards that are good, but are the building blocks. They are not these standout cards that A's and B's might be, but they are the kind of necessary pieces to make a deck work. So these are cards like the Lilo and Maleficence. We'll actually see a couple of these um, in the set here because we have some more versions of those. Friends on the Other Side, right? These are cards that are really, really good. We are not denying their kind of playability, but again, they're there to be the building blocks of a deck. They're not going to be these standout cards that are going to be warping the meta, like maybe some of these A and B cards. Then we go down to some of the worst cards, cards here. So you have D's that are generally poor, lackluster, and just kind of inefficient. So you have cards like Triton the Sea King, Elsa Queen Regent. This is just like the kind of blah creatures or characters that are just, 4 cost 4/4, 1, nothing interesting about them. Just kind of blah. They're not bad cards. They're just not intended to see play in Constructed. A lot of them are just kind of cool characters. Maybe they're more designed for limited. Again, this is kind of where a lot of the commons and uncommons are going to end up, either in the C or the D range. And then we have Fs. These are just terrible cards. There's just pretty much no reason to put them in your deck. They also could be like highly specific, like the Moana Chosen by the Ocean, the one that referenced the Teika card, the Scar card that only banishes a Mufasa, Dingle Hopper and Healing Glow, these kind of really inefficient items or healing effects. Reflection, the one that just like looks at the top of cards of your deck and doesn't really accomplish anything. So these are just cards that like they might reference something from the movies or from Disney. They might look cool. They might look, but they are just absolutely terrible effects. No real reason to include them in any way, shape, or form. And then we get on to the tech cards. So again, I added this because in Lorcana we don't have sideboards like we do in Magic, but there could be some scenarios. Hello, dog. Hi, Cookie. We're doing this live, so my dog is going to interrupt. I apologize. She's very needy. Tech cards, right, are cards that we sometimes would include in decks. Not because they're good overall, but maybe they you can kind of hedge your bets against a particular matchup. So Poison Apple, Sword of Truth are some examples here, but we've also had cards in the past like Avalanche in the Bucky meta. Just some of these cards that you wouldn't choose to run normally, but if a meta arises where you're wanting to kind of fight against a particular deck, maybe you include some copies of those cards. Think of the cards like Rise of the Titans. I guess that card's more of like a thing. Hideaway, right? These are cards that, again, aren't good in and of themselves. They're good because of the context within the meta that they're played. Right, so in the meta with a lot of items and locations, cards like Hideaway and Rise of the Titans tend to be more commonly played. All right, so that is it for the grading scale here. Again, I'm gonna try to mention some limited or draft concepts or ramifications when that comes up, but otherwise, this is more of an assessment for Constructed. Let's start off with just the Amber commons and uncommons. Again, since we're doing this on Dreamboard and it's a little harder to kind of filter by commons and uncommons or to kind of go through it, just going to do uncommons and commons, rares, then super rares, then obviously legendaries at the end. And again, we'll go by color order here. So first up, we have Owl Pirate Lookout. 3 cost 3/3/1. Got some keywords here. There's a lot of pirates, but again, I'm not really evaluating these cards higher because they're pirates. Because again, I'm still not sure that the pirate archetype is really gonna work out well. But this is a good card to start on because we have this cool ability here in Well Spotted. During your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, chosen opposing character gets -1 strength until the start of your next turn. So a lot of Lorcana players who maybe haven't played other TCGs might not be aware of this, but this is Landfall from Magic. Landfall was an ability that Magic really liked and has used in quite a few cases. And it's a really healthy ability. It's kind of like you're limiting an ability of how many times it can happen. Like if this happened every turn, I don't know how strong this card would be, but maybe it would be better. With this case, it's every turn, but with a condition, and maybe in the late game, or it happens less, or maybe it happens more if you enable it better, which we'll kind of talk about. But generally speaking, in the most cases, this is going to be a once per turn. Just again with the condition of inking a card from your hand. And now let's just actually get into this card in particular. This is a D. This is a pretty weak card. Again, the rate is fine. 3 cost 3/3/1, perfectly fine. But the 1 strength kind of downtick isn't really going to be that relevant. Maybe in the early game it kind of affects something, but then it just kind of loses its effectiveness later in the game. So yeah, not really a high card on my list. Speaking of, Gopher here, another vanilla character. It is also a pirate. Again, another one of these Ds. Not a bad card. I guess I should say, yeah, again, it's kind of in the C-D range, but again, not really a card that I'm looking at for constructed, but could actually be pretty good in draft. Actually, this might be a nice card. The 6 willpower in draft could be pretty good. Simba, on the other hand, is definitely in the D range here. Another vanilla card, but just not high on my list. This is, again, here because we have the Floodborn Simba. So again, of note for people who maybe haven't noticed this, anytime there's a Floodborn character in a set, they're always going to kind of have a counterpart. They're always going to have a common or uncommon character in the set that is supposed to be the card that you play first before you shift over top. So Simba, happy-go-lucky here. You can play on turn 2, and then you can play the legendary Simba over top of it, which we'll obviously see when we get to the legendaries, but yeah, still does not change the evaluation of the card here. Next up, we got Chip. We got Chip and Dale here. Very cute. Very exciting. So this is 3 cost 3/3/1. Whenever you play this character, chosen character gets +1 lore this turn. So this is very similar to Donald Duck from, I think, the last set, or maybe the set before. And that card is seeing a little bit of play. This is kind of another one of these effects. Do we need another one of these effects? I'm not sure. But what I can tell you is that there's also a Chip and Dale Floodborn card. So it's very possible that this card sees play because of that. And again, it's a fine card on its own. So I'm going to give it a C with the kind of caveat that, again, there's the context of there's a Chip and Dale card. Yeah. All right. Kind of a nice follow-up. We got Dale. 3 cost, inkable 3/4/2. Character enters play exerted unless you have a character named Chip in play. So this is very similar to the Sleepy card. A little bit bigger, a little bit better stats. So yeah, I don't think that card really saw that much play, but this again could see play too. Again, partly because again the Chip and Dale card. I'll give it a C, maybe a C minus, because again I think Amber has kind of enough efficient characters to play. I'll also note that it is a hero. That is another nice tag to have. Does the Chip have? Chip has that as well, so that's pretty cool. The fact that both of these are heroes could be relevant for that archetype. All right, next up we got David, Impressive Surfer. 3/3/1. Inkable, and then while you have a character named Nani in play, it gets +2 lore. I don't think this is good, but there is a bodyguard Nani, and it does kind of curve well. It's a 5 cost, right? That being said, though, I don't think it's gonna see play. It is kind of cool, but it's kind of a lot of work for not that much payoff. And if you ever draw this and you don't have a Nani, it's pretty bad. So I'm gonna give this a D. Again, just these characters that require you to have another character in play don't often end up working out unless there's again enough of that character. And right now, I can only think of one even playable Nani. All right, next up we have a Floodborn Prince Naveen, Vigilant First Mate. 5 cost inkable 2/6/2. Shift 3, and it's got Bodyguard. And again, just like Naveen, it's a hero prince. So again, those are relevant tags. The Bodyguard on this is nice. The Shift 3 is interesting. I just can't think of, I guess I can now look now that we're on Dreamborn. I can kind of see the other Naveens in the set. So you have one here in set 6, but otherwise, you got this one, and that's really it. I don't really see this being that good. I would kind of want a 1 cost Naveen to work with it, or like a kind of cheaper one. This Naveen, right, is just like kind of too weird, and then playing this for 5 is too inefficient. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a D, maybe a D plus. Like maybe if the hero prince tag is relevant enough for things like the Pride lands or the hero stuff, maybe. But I don't really see this card doing too much. So again, we have the Naveen here, giving that a D, classic filler card. Next up, we got Cheap Bogo Gazelle Fan, 4 cost, 4/4/1. While you have a character named Gazelle in play, this character gains Singer 6. So we have only one Gazelle in the game. It is the Singer 5 from Shimmering Skies, I believe. And yeah, this is just like not a joke, but it's just the kind of flavor win, the kind of storytelling here, which is great. I love to see it, but for constructed, again, this is just not an efficient card. This, I think I would put in an F, because again, the payoff for it is also like really not good. Like Singer 6 also isn't really that great. Like Singing a Whole New World and some stuff like that is like fine, but yeah, not really gaining that much benefit. And again, you have to have both of these cards in play. Yeah, it's not gonna happen. Again, 4/4/1 is fine and limited. So again, if you see this in a pack and you can just take it, cool. Right, I'm not wrong that there's no other Gazelles. Oh, we do have another Gazelle here. This doesn't change my assessment. We have another Gazelle, but again, does not change my assessment of the card. All right, next up we have a Chip Ranger Leader, 4-cost inkable 3/4/2. It's another hero. While you have a Dale, this guy gets support. Again, a D. I kind of want to give it an F, but I'm trying to be nice to the cards here. The fact that we already have cards like this that just naturally have supporter, like there we have, I think, a couple of 4-cost 3/4/2s that have supporter. The fact that you have to have a Dale in play just makes this so much worse. So yeah, it's gonna be a D, maybe D minus even for me. Yeah. Now we have an interesting one. So you have Grand Councilwoman, 2-cost inkable 1/3/1. It's an alien, and whenever this character requests, your other aliens get +1 lore this turn. So very, very interesting. Trying to make this kind of alien archetype have a little bit more support. There was also the Galactic Federation card. There's some support here and there, but I don't think there's enough to make an actual alien deck work. Is there a deck that naturally runs enough aliens, like maybe a Stitch deck, or I know was it John Silver is an alien. All of his cards are aliens, so those can all be interesting. But Is that enough to run this card? I don't think so. Again, in the context that there is an alien deck, I think this is a C. Right. I think if there's an alien deck, this will obviously see play in it, but until then, it's pretty much just a D. But I would be excited to see if something like that happens. But again, I'm usually not very optimistic, as the amount of alien text on cards is pretty rare. As you can see here, there is not a lot of cards. Oh, we don't even have. I guess this is giving the characteristic. I wish I could search for text. Maybe that does it. Nope. In any case, yeah, I still don't think that'll be enough to kind of make Grand Councilwoman a playable card. All right, next up we got Dale Mischievous Ranger. When you play this character, you may put the top 3 cards of your deck into your discard to give chosen character -3 until the start of your next turn. So very interesting that there is this kind of self-mill or self-discard for non-Magic players effect. How relevant that is right now, we don't really know. We haven't really seen too many other effects. You have the Lilo in this color that you can get back from your discard. We have Chernabog that kind of wants you to have characters in your discard. So there are some ways in which this is relevant or could have some synergy. But besides some scenario like that, again, this is another D, just not a really relevant card. This is a little bit better in draft, as that -3 strength can be efficient at kind of saving a character or making a trade more beneficial. And it's inkable, which is nice. So again, could be decent in draft, but yeah, otherwise not really concerning myself with it. Rabbit here is, I think we've seen this before. It's kind of like was it Timon? Kind of duplicate, 1 cost inkable, 1/1 that removes damage from something. It is also a pirate, but not enough to change my rating. I think this is a D minus, not an F, but pretty close to it. We got Rue, Littlest Pirate, 2 inkable, 1/1. You play this, another character gets weaker. This is again fine. It's a pirate, but again, still giving it a D. I'm moving through these because most of these are kind of whatever. I think this one I was kind of interested in. Yes, so actually this one I kind of liked. So this is 3 cost, inkable, 2/3/1. This is Mr. Litwick. I believe it's from Wreck-It Ralph, I want to say. I haven't actually seen Wreck-It Ralph. I gotta watch Wreck-It Ralph. I'll be honest, I'll out myself there. Once during your turn, whenever you play another character, you may ready this character. He can't challenge or quest for the quest or challenge, for the rest of this turn. So, kind of a character that you can kind of keep safe pretty efficiently. You can also quest with it. Play another character and then use it to sing. That's kind of cool. So. Yeah, I think it's still like a D, maybe a D plus, but again, I could see this moving up to a C if there's a deck that can make use of it. Here we got Good Job. Chosen character gets +1 lore this turn. This I'm not sure on. Again, kind of like some of the other cards from the last set that kind of have that instantaneous lore gain. I'm not sure if you want to play this on an action, because it's not as good of a top deck as, again, something like a Goat or a Donald Duck, right? A Donald Duck can still quest. Is this being an action good enough? There's some action synergies in this set with the Tigger. I'm going to give it a C because I think, again, this effect is fine. It's just a question of, is there a deck that really wants this effect? And how good is it? Next up, we got I Won't Give In, 2 cost inkable action song. Return a character card with 2 cost or less from your discard to your hand. I like this card. I like this card a lot. I think this is a C only because again, it's not that busted, but I do think that there are some decks that will want to make usage of this card. Can get back some powerful characters like Smee, Ursula Deceiver. There's plenty of good characters to get back with this that are cheap and efficient. You got we have the new Oswald. I don't know if you're playing that in Amber Sapphire, but you have Madam Mims in your aggro. You got your aggressive characters like Lilo and Piglet. So I think, yeah, that's just great. And the fact that you can sing this might not be great, but it could be useful in a pinch. Next up, we got Rescue Rangers Away. 2-cost action. Count the number of characters you have in play. Chosen character loses strength equal to that number until the start of your next turn. So just before I rate the card, I like that they're putting kind of these dynamic costs. Like that this action doesn't do the same thing every time. It does some different stuff, which I like. But that unfortunately does not make this card playable. This card's still pretty weak. Being on an action as opposed to a character just makes this card a lot weaker. And yeah, just again, this is not a card that's intended for constructed play. So I would give this an F. Again, I don't even think in a draft it's really that useful. Next up, we got Naveen's Ukulele, 1-cost item. 1 and banish this item to have chosen character count as having +3 cost to sing songs this turn. So kind of like the Atlantica location that we had from last set, but an item and kind of maybe a little bit easier to kind of use. You can kind of play it on turn 1 and then kind of wait for the perfect turn to sing with this. Not really sure what decks really want to use this and in what scenario this is good, but this I feel like could see a little bit of play depending on what you use it for. So I'll give this a C, maybe a C minus, because I don't think it's going to be a particularly good card, but people might try and tinker with this. Next up, we got Scrump. I just like saying that, Scrump. 2-cost inkable item. Exert one of your characters. Chosen character gets -2 strength until the start of your next turn. So for people again who don't know kind of the official rules here, this symbol means that your character has to be dry, and that's really taxing on this card. It really limits the playability of this card. I think this is a D minus. I'm just not really interested in this card, and even in draft, maybe you could see using this, but this is quite a costly effect. All right, and then we got, I have to tilt my head here. 100 Acre Island. First of all, love that we have like a Winnie the Pooh location here. Love that. This is like a level in Kingdom Hearts. So I love that. But yeah, it's a 1-cost inkable location with 5 willpower, 1 cost to move. No lore initially, but during your opponent's turn, whenever a character is banished while here, you gain 1 lore. So this can kind of be a late game way of disincentivizing your opponent from challenging your characters. That being said, the 5 willpower makes this a little bit difficult to kind of protect in the late game. So I'm kind of curious about the usage of this card. That being, I guess I'm also thinking of you can use it to kind of protect your characters. So, you know, if they only have like 1 or 2 characters, you know, you put a lot of your characters here and they kind of have to challenge the location first before banishing your characters. So yeah, it kind of works like Bodyguard, and is a little bit cheaper. So yeah, I think it's a C minus. Like I could see a deck use this. I will note that we have seen an emergence of a kind of steel, amber steel location deck featuring John Silver that just tries to play all the cheap locations and kind of make good usage of them. So this could be relevant for that. So I'm trying to think of contexts where the card could be useful. So, all right. I think that's it for those. Let's go over to Amethyst here. All right, we got Genie here. This is a D. This is just like a filler card. Nothing to write home about. Kind of the same here with Sisu in her element. 5 cost inkable, 3/6/2. Challenger 2, it is a hero, deity, dragon. Two of those types I think have been relevant so far. I don't think we've seen any deity stuff matter. But yeah, this challenging as a 5/6 is nice, and then it questing for 2. I don't think it's good enough for constructed, but it could be quite good in draft. This is like a pretty strong card in draft. So be on the lookout for that. As I said, I want to make note of that when I can. But yeah, in constructed, this just looks like a D. It's just a little bit too slow. It's cool, but I don't really see this seeing that much use. I don't know. There is also a Sisu that cares about getting a lot of dragons in your deck. Maybe that's relevant, but I don't know. Next up, we got the White Rose, Jewel of the Garden. 3 cost inkable, 3/3/1. When you play this character, gain 1 lore. All right, there we go. We got, I think, a pretty solid C here. I don't really see people talking about this card too much, and that's kind of weird because we know that Goat is good, and while this isn't anywhere near as good as Merlin Goat, it is still good. Just a character that comes down, gets you a lore, and can either contest the board, quest, or even sing something like Friends. All great. So again, do I think this card is insane? No, but I definitely think there could be a kind of deck that just plays all of the effects that just gain you lore right away. Merlin, this Gathering of Knowledge and Wisdom, and just try and just cheese your opponent out just by playing those cards. I don't know. Excuse me. All right, next up we got Juju, Mama Odie's companion. 2 cost inkable, 1/2/1. When you play this character, you do the move damage thing. This mechanic has really not worked out. I do like that they're doing more of it. I wish they would do more. I just wish that some of the effects were a little bit better. I really haven't seen a deck that's really gonna kind of make a lot of these effects work. So, yeah, this just looks like a D, just not particularly powerful. Next up, we got 1 cost Rafiki, generic filler. It's a D, but I will note that there is a Rafiki Floodborn. This card I'm really excited for. 3 cost inkable, 1/3/2. Tinkerbell, Fast Flyer, Storyborn Ally Fairy. It's got Evasive. So this is essentially a color shifted Minnie Mouse Surfer. And Surfer was good, and it's going to be even better here. I will note that there is a Floodborn Tinkerbell in this set that also cares about fairies, so like running these together could be good, but also non-Ruby decks that want an evasive quester like this. You have Amethyst Steel. It could be good. Amethyst Emerald. Both these decks could now see a little bit improvement, a bit of an improvement in the way that they can be built, or maybe even in their aggression. Just 1-drop, 2-drop this could just put a lot of pressure on the opponent. Next up we got, oh, sorry, did I say C? I mean, C, definitely a C. Again, not a standout, not a crazy card, but definitely gonna see some play. Another interesting one here in the Carpenter, 2 cost inkable, 1/1/1. When this is banished, you may exert chosen character. So kind of like a reverse of the Pinocchio from set 2. Is this good enough because it's inkable? I don't think so. Also, how are you banishing this? Because if you're challenging something and banishing itself, then you're kind of already challenging stuff. So I don't know. I'm going to give this a D for now. Again, kind of like the Pinocchio, it's kind of hard to rate this kind of effect. I don't think it's going to see play unless there's something that I'm missing that this card could be good. All right, next up we got Iago, Reappearing Parrot, 4 cost, inkable, 4/2/1. This is banished in a challenge, which I like. Return this card to your hand. Again, not a card for limited or for constructed. It's pretty much a D in constructed, but I think really, really good in limited. Just any kind of recurring threat. is powerful. So that's exactly what this card is. So definitely look out for this card in limited, but not too much otherwise. Walrus here is a filler D level card. We got an interesting one in Scar, Tempestuous Lion. Huh. Getting, again, another, like, image that makes me think of Kingdom Hearts because there's a Scar boss. Anyways, 6 cost, uninkable, 4/4/2. Villain Sorcerer, interesting, with Rush and Challenger 3. So really, really cool that this can come down and just immediately answer a castle. I think that this just replaces Maui? Probably not, because it's not inkable. But I think the Hercules that Ruby Amethyst was playing, or kind of sorry, Ruby Sapphire was playing, just kind of looks silly compared to this. But again, you can't play that play this in that deck. I think this card's good. I think the fact that this can kill a castle and then quest is just awesome. Again, it just is making me. I'm looking at this card and I'm thinking this is a Maui that can also quest. The issue is the uninkability there. Right. This is the biggest knock on the card. Obviously, like it would be really, really good if it was inkable. But yeah, this definitely could see some play. Again, it's just a question of what other uninkables are kind of taking up slots in your deck. So I think this is a C. I think this actually could see play, genuinely. All right, here's the interesting Tinkerbell card. Queen of Azurite Fairies. So 7 cost inkable, 5/6/2, shift 5, evasive. We'll note that it is, a queen, which is relevant, and a captain. Both of those are relevant. Subtypes there. Whenever this quests, your other fairies gain +1 lore this turn. So again, kind of that fairy tribal or fairy archetype. But I will also note that this is kind of just a fine card to play normally. You don't really have to jam your deck full of fairies. I also noted that I've been seeing some Steel Jafar lists that have Blue Fairy, which is a fairy, and then, it kind of draws cards and in quests and does the thing with this as kind of like an extra Floodborn to shift alongside Jafar. Does that make this card insane? No, but I think this card could see some play, so I'm going to give it a C. Again, it is just a little bit expensive, but the big evasives in this game can be hard to answer, so I do like that. Ooh, this card I'm excited for. Diablo Obedient Raven, 1 cost inkable, 0/1/1. We don't really see 0 strength on characters often, but yeah, when this character is banished, you may draw a card. Fantastic. Love this card. Definitely a C plus, I'd say. Just a really good 1-drop. Very similar to Chernobog's followers. Not as good as contesting the board. Right? It doesn't challenge in any way, shape, or form, but you can quest with it, and then you're sure it's at least going to get you a card back. If you ever just like have this on turn 1, I think you're going to be pretty happy with it. So, yeah. All right, next up we got March here, 4 cost inkable, 2/3/2 with Rush. No other card types. Also note that it does not have. Yeah, interesting that it has one type. It doesn't even. It's not even an ally. It's just Storyborn. It has no other character types. I don't think I've really seen that before. I could be wrong. In any case, these cards confuse me. I know Amethyst is kind of dips their toe into the rush mechanic as we saw from the Scar, but why does this card with kind of weak stats and high lore power have rush? Why are you going to be kind of rushing in with it and challenging a lot with it? It just doesn't seem like that's what it's going to be doing. I would expect that this card will come down, and if it challenges something, it's probably going to die. And you just don't get any lore out of it. That being said, maybe, this is good to kind of play as something that you are intending to challenge with, but maybe in a scenario where you don't need to, you just don't challenge and you just quest with it. What are you doing? Dog is making weird noises. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think this is a D. I just don't really understand the thought process behind these cards. And again, they usually don't see play. Was it Della Duck, or there was another duck from set 5 or set 4 that it was like a 2 cost 1/3 rush, and I don't understand these cards. I don't get it. Someone explained it to me. Yeah, that's my 2 cents. Magic Carpet here, which is a kind of color shifted caterpillar. Caterpillar saw a little bit of play. So this is maybe a C minus. Like it could see a little bit of play, but it's not a particularly strong card. But it's cool artwork, and I like that we have a cool Magic Carpet card. Yeah. All right, next up we got Peter Pan Shadow Catcher. It's funny that we have like the Peter Pan Shadow Finder, Peter Pan Shadow, and now we have the Shadow Catcher. 4 cost uninkable 1/3/1 hero, and then during your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, exert opposing character. So kind of another one of these repeatable cards, repeatable effects if you have the landfall inking ability. I don't know what to call it for short. I think they should really start adding some of these named keywords. Like Singer, I think this should have had a keyword attached to it. But in any case, I won't harp on that too much. I don't think this card is particularly good. The effect on the board is nice, but it is pretty lackluster the turn it comes down. Because again, it's just a 1/3. Paying 4 ink for a 1/3 that might not do something the turn that it comes down, right? You have to play this on turn 5 if you really want to get the ability, and that just seems really weak. So yeah, I think this is a D. Again, like the Pinocchio, there could be a scenario where you want to run this if you want to repeatedly exert your the opposing characters. But yeah, I don't think it's particularly strong. So D for now. All right, and then we have one of the cards that again people are. Oh my goodness. This is one of the cards that a lot of people are kind of hype on because again, everyone in the game seems to want some type of mill deck to work. I don't. But again, I'm in the minority here, so a very merry unbirthday. 1 cost inkable action song. Each opponent puts the top 2 cards of their deck into their discard. So you might be asking people who don't know what a mill deck is, or a deck that is trying to completely remove the opponent's deck and have them lose the game due to not being able to draw a card. People might say, "Oh, well, if you're doing that, like, why would you put this card in your deck, and how good is it? Is that game plan and that effect?" And the answer is not good, and because the issue here is that the first time you do this, it does absolutely nothing. Removing 2 random cards from your opponent's deck does not really accomplish much. Again, unless they are the literal last 2 cards in their deck, in which case, boom, you win the game. Great. So again, all of this to say that, again, this card is F unless there is a deck that actually can successfully pull off the mill strategy. Again, I was knocking this card because I was like, oh, 2 cards is not that much, but there's even some ways of rebuying it, and then there's ways to double it with a card like Ursula Deceiver of All. Is that good enough? I don't think so, but again, I hope that this does not exist in an actual mill deck. So yeah, like I also don't think that people run this in the small case where your opponent you're in a long game and your opponent you're just trying to get the last couple of cards. I don't think it's good in that scenario either. So yeah, this is an F. Again, unless somehow there is a mill deck, but again, I'm hoping that does not happen. Next up, we got Making Magic, 3-cost inkable, action, move damage, and draw a card. This just looks like a D. Drawing a card is nice. If you are able to remove a character with this, it's a good tempo play. It's just moving 1 damage is usually not going to be the difference maker. This is not a song, so it's fairly expensive. Yeah, not particularly strong. You got Lose the Way, exert chosen character, then you may choose and discard a card. If you do, the exerted character can't ready at the start of their next turn. So this is pretty interesting in that this is an inkable version of Freeze, I think it is. Right, there was an effect that an action that did this, but was uninkable. Now this version is inkable, which could be pretty useful. Again, kind of like the issue with the Pinocchio card was that it was uninkable. Now you can kind of do that, but it is not a character, so it's harder to rebuy unless you are able to rebuy actions. And then this added bonus of kind of taking an extra card you have in hand and turning it into a way to kind of lock down a character for a turn, like the Elsa Spirit of Winter, could be pretty good. So I'll give this a C, maybe a C minus. Because I do think there could be some usage for a card like this. All right, we mentioned the mill strategies, so this is another card that people are hoping makes that archetype work. Again, I'm hoping not. Mad Hatter's Teapot, 2-cost inkable item. Exert it and spend an ink to have each opponent put the top card of their deck into their discard. Again, unless there is a mill deck that actually does the thing, I don't think this card's going to be played. It's a pretty clear F for me. Pixie Dust, 4-cost, uninkable item. Exert and 2 ink to have chosen character gain Challenger 2 and Evasive 2 until the start of your next turn. So, powerful effect, essentially letting you get a really powerful challenge in while also keeping the character safe. Or it can also just have that dual mode of just letting you challenge more efficiently or letting you keep one of your characters safe. That being said, it is a 4-cost uninkable item. We've seen that these cards are just not playable in Constructed, so it's an F in Constructed, but in Draft, there definitely could be a scenario where you play this, and it's and it stays on the board, and then some of your characters are very difficult to remove. So I think that could be good there. All right, and lastly, we got a ferry ship here. Just a very similar location to the ones you've seen. A filler location. It's a D. Again, locations are nice, but again, nothing really too crazy going on there. All right, those are the Amethyst commons and uncommons. We'll go over to Emerald here. You got Stitch Little Trickster, 2-cost inkable 1/3/1. This is a very unique ability in that it just kind of like the Cusco from the last set. It's an ability that costs ink but does not exert, so this can be used multiple times in a turn. And it says this character gets +1 strength. Cool. Cool effect. It scales into the late game, so it could get really big. But the issue is that it's not a really powerful character. Otherwise, it doesn't quest for a lot. So this looks more like a D, maybe a D+. Again, the hero and alien subtype is very relevant. We also have the Stitch Rockstar card that this works okay with, right? Maybe this is a way to kind of play that deck, play this out, get a bunch of characters on board, and then this is a kind of powerful challenger. That's about all I have to say. Yeah. Next up, we got Honey Lemon. So see, I think this is our first little bit of the Big Hero 6 cards. Very excited to kind of have this in the mix. 2-cost inkable 1/1/2 Hero Inventor, which is another supported character type. When you play this character, you may pay 2 to have each opponent choose and discard a card. So very interesting here. Just an efficient quester to play on turn 2, but then in the late game, you can kind of pay that kicker cost as we've discussed and kind of get an extra card and get a little bit more bang for your buck, so to speak. So this is definitely a C. Again, the Hero and Inventor tags are both relevant. So yeah, this card will definitely, see some usage. Emerald digging into that discard mechanic still. Followed up, we got Fred, 1-cost inkable 1/1/1, and whenever this character is challenged, you gain 2 lore. This card's a little bit harder to evaluate because it's fairly frail, but also the question is, in what scenario is this not going to be removed and not challenged? And there are a couple. Again, there are things like Sisu, Fire the Cannons, Tinkerbell, Be Prepared. So that makes me think that this card's not very good. It might be better in limited. Again, this in limited could be fairly strong. Just a 1-drop that gets you 3 lore. As again, the non-challenging removal in limited tends to be more rare. But yeah, for constructed, this looks like a D plus. Maybe it could be moved up to a C depending on the meta or the deck that it's in. We've got Toodles here. A D is just a filler card. Dawson, another filler card. Another D. We got Heathcliff here, the butler from the movie. 4-cost Inkable, 3/3/2 with Ward. Those are nice stats, but it doesn't really have much else going for it. This just looks like another filler card to me. It's just a D. Yeah, it's just a little bit too expensive. So yeah, probably not going to see play, but it's a fine card. Basil here, kind of the same 3/3/2 evasive. It is a hero, but just looks like a filler card. A D. Donald Duck here could be good. We got 3-cost Inkable, 2/3/1 hero pirate. While you have a captain in play, this character gets +2 lore. So this in some kind of deck with Captain Hook that also wants to play Smee. Right, these cards all kind of go in this kind of Emerald Steel pirate captain carrying deck. So if that's the case, definitely could be a good. Oh, we got the same artist as I believe that's the same artist as Rapunzel, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, unless something like that happens, this is a D. But I could see it moving up to a C. But yeah, because the Captain Clause is not as hard to get as some of the other cards that we've seen. Again, that are asking for a Nani in play or a particular character in play like Gazelle or something like that. This is a little bit easier to obtain, and you end up with a Caterpillar that has extra strength, and yeah, that makes me think this is going to end up more as a D, but it's fine. Again, if there's a deck that is an Emerald Steel deck that is all just naturally running Smee and Captain Hook, maybe you just slot this in there as a nice cluster. All right, next up we got this card. I'm not even gonna bother pronouncing this card. It's a filler. It's a 1/3. It's fine. We got Prince Philip here, which is a 3-cost 3/2/2 with Ward. So kind of like the other card that we just saw, the Butler, but this is a little bit cheaper and has the Hero and Prince tag. We also know about Prince Philip Floodborns in the game. So that could be kind of nice. A shift target that has Word is pretty valuable. That being said, I don't really see this card seeing play, so I'm going to say it's a D, but again, there could be a scenario where it moves up to a C if that kind of line, that shift line becomes usable. All right, we got Alistair Cree, 3-cost Inkable 2/4. When you play this character, if an opponent has an item in play, gain 1 lore. So good flavor there. This is at most a tech card. Again, if there's a meta where everyone's playing items, you can play this, but in general, I don't think this card's going to see that much play. There's other ways of kind of gaining lore when you play them, right, that we've seen, and Emerald can use that, but I don't think it's pretty that effective. So yeah, looks more like a D. We saw this Gazelle earlier. 2-cost Inkable 1/2/1. You play this character, chosen character gains evasive. That's a nice effect. You could actually run this in kind of an aggressive deck. You go like a turn 1 Lilo or Merfolk. You follow it up and give that character evasive. Is that good enough? I don't really know. But I'll give it a C, actually. I think this card's actually kind of fine. So, cool. Got Bellwether, 3-cost uninkable 2/3/1. During your turn, whatever card is put into your inkwell, chosen opposing character gains Reckless during their next turn. That's pretty scary, actually. Again, not as good as Lyle Tiberius Work, but but could be kind of annoying in the in draft, definitely. And then if there's the Sapphire Emerald deck that can put a lot of cards in the Inkwell, maybe this card could see a little bit of play, but the uninkability kind of is scaring me a little bit. So yeah, I'll give this a D. I could see it moving up to a C. It's kind of in the middle. I'm really not sure. This is an interesting one. The villain tag as well, also relevant. I love the design, and again, this could be scary. Just repeatedly giving your the opposing characters reckless could get quite annoying. All right, next up we got Basil. Ooh, we got the enchanted art here. Basil, Disguised Detective, 6-cost inkable, 4/5/2. Another hero. It's got shift for 4, and then whenever a card is put into your inkwell during your turn, you can pay 1 to have your opponent discard a card. So very, very strong already. Not a lot of Basils that are good to shift on top of this. There's a couple. There's like a 1-cost in Sapphire. I think they added some more for Emerald in this set, but we also have Morph. That's another consideration to take into account. So yeah, just getting this down early, and then just you ink a card, take a card, is really, really strong. And this quest for 2, which is really, really nice. So yeah, this is definitely I'm going to give it a C, maybe a C+, because I definitely think it's going to see play. Do I think it's going to be amazing? I'm really not sure right now. We got Prepare to Board here. This is another one of those weird actions that buffs and also buffs more if it's a pirate. Not really playable. This is pretty close to an F. These cards just never really do much. We got Heffalumps and Woozles, 2-cost inkable action song. Chosen opposing character can't quest during their next turn, draw a card. So of note, this prevents them from questing, but doesn't force them to challenge like Reckless does. That being said, this is a pretty cool action for any kind of Ursula Deceiver of all decks, for Emerald Steel to kind of just stall out in the early game. The fact that it draws a card, the fact that it replaces itself is really nice. Also works well with the muses. You sing this, you bounce something, and you prevent something else from questing. Really, really cool effect there. So I'm high on this card. I think this is going to be a C for me. Again, not crazy, but we'll definitely see some usage. Mosquito Bite is not a card that I see a lot of people talking about. I kind of like didn't look at it too much, and then I just kind of realized, oh wait, this is 1-cost inkable action, put damage on something, which is essentially just dealing a damage. Right? This is an inkable mini play with fire. So this is, I assume, designed to work with the kind of, is this character damaged cards. Again, I still don't think that's going to work out, but the fact that you just have this inkable action that could just remove a character that has 1 willpower left could be good. I'm going to give this a C for now, but I could definitely see this, not being good enough. Again, I'm not high on it, but I'm keeping my eye out for this type of card. Next up, we got Megabot, 2-cost inkable item. Enters play exerted, and then you can exert it the next turn to banish it, and then either banish an item or banish a damaged character. So kind of, we're kind of still kind of being very wary of any actions that can be used as removal. That being said, I still don't know if this is good enough. It's kind of interesting that's an item that can banish another item. But yeah, the issue is the uninkability. This is just like a D, like maybe it's a tech card. It's definitely a tech card if you're wanting, if you're an item deck that wants to banish other items. I don't know. This is a really weird one. Yeah, just looks like not a card that I'm really expecting to see play. This is not a card that I've seen before. I don't think I've actually looked at this card. So kind of cool. You kind of get to see my fresh take. So 2-cost uninkable item, Galactic Communicator. Pay 1 to banish it and return chosen character with power 2 or less, or strength 2 or less to their player's hand. So this is kind of like a worse version of the Amethyst card that did this. So, and it cost, that one, was it free? I forget if it was free or if it cost. Let me look it up. Amethyst item. Where'd you go? Retrosphere. Cost 2. Still does not really change my assessment. Yeah, this looks like an F. Just really, really poor card. So, yeah. Not high on that at all. Transporter Pod here. 1 cost, inkable item. At the start of your turn, you may move a character of yours to a location for free. I think this is an F. I think this is a terrible, terrible card. In order for this card to work, I feel like I've gone over this so many times of these various cards that require you to have so many different card types and cards on the board. In order for this card to work successfully, you need to A, have this in play. You need to have a location in play. And you need to have a character in play that you want to move to that location. And that has to do something. Like moving it to the location doesn't really do much. So this is super, super highly specific. I think it's absolutely an F. Again, could there be some wonky combos that people come up with? Sure. I don't think that's going to be what we're going to be dealing with here. So, all right, next up we got Perilous Mage, 3 cost inkable location with 8 willpower, 1 lore, and 1 cost to move. Whenever a character is challengeable here, each opponent chooses and discards a card. That's pretty cool. It essentially turns all of your characters into merfolks or Flynn's, right? And the fact that it also just gives you a lure is pretty nice. This I think I'm going to give a C. I think this actually could see some play. Just a little bit of a disincentive. Again, still works if they are empty-handed. So in the late game, maybe this becomes less relevant, but just a nice location. Seems perfectly fine. All right, that is it for the Emerald. Let's move on to Ruby. Take a quick break to blow my nose again. All right, on to the Ruby commons and uncommons here. We got Kakamora, uninkable 5/2, 1 for 4. It's Pirate, it's got Rush. I'm gonna give it a D. It looks pretty weak. The uninkability is rough. Good for limited, very, very strong in limited, but not really what I'm looking for in constructed. We got a bunch of the Kakamoras here. 2 cost inkable, 1/3/1. When you play this character, chosen pirate gains evasive until the start of your next turn. So very, very similar to the Gazelle that we just saw in Emerald, but needing to be on a pirate is quite a tax. Again, it itself is a pirate, so I guess you give itself, yeah, you can give itself it, but again, why are you doing that? Yeah, this looks like a D. Again, just unless the pirate deck is really useful, I don't really see that working too well. We got Jasmine, Rebellious Princess here. Interesting to see a Ruby Jasmine. It works well here. I wasn't really expecting that. So 3 cost inkable 2/3/2. Got a Hero Princess. Again, relevant tags there. Whenever it quests, each opponent loses 1 lore. So a little bit of an upgrade to the Aladdin from set 1. That being said, again, these effects can be good. I do think that if this type of effect is playable, it'll be in this form, just a repeatable effect. The stats are okay. So I'll give it a C, but a C minus, and I don't think that anyone's going to be like super worried about this card, but it can definitely do the job it has to be in an aggressive Ruby deck though. Yeah. We got John Silver here, 4 cost, uninkable 2/4/2. Whenever this character again, it has all the same types that all the other John Silvers have. Whenever this character quests, you may deal 1 damage to another chosen character of yours. If you do, ready that character. They can't quest for the rest of this turn. So pretty nice effect there. Just kind of getting to challenge twice with the character potentially, or ready another one of your characters and kind of keep it safe. I've seen a couple of people try to make this thing work, building decks around it. So it might see a little bit of play. It might be good enough. So I'll give it a C. I will also note that there is an interesting question in the rules right now of the question is, what does if you do mean? Because the question is, if you deal 1 damage to a character with resist, and the resist negates the damage, does that work? My assessment right now is yes. Like it just cares about dealing the 1 damage is what it's talking about. It's the attempting of dealing a damage. And it doesn't really care if you actually deal a damage or not, but just pointing that out there. I've been trying to find a judge to get an official answer to that. But in any case, another interesting card here. A lot of cool Ruby uncommons here. 3 Vanellope von Schweetz, 3-cost inkable 2/3/1. It's got the Vanellope tags there. At the start of your turn, if this character's at a location, you draw a card and gain 1 lore. So very interesting that they're adding this kind of card drop potential to Ruby, but under the condition of working with locations. So we have, like the was it the Jim Hawkins cards and the cards there, like the RLS Legacy. Maybe if there's that deck kind of makes a revival with this card giving you extra value, could be good. So I'm gonna give this a C. Again, this is all under the caveat of these are fairly specific decks. These aren't just kind of good in any scenario. So again, assuming that these kind of cards, if their decks are successful, maybe they will work. Michael here, generic filler, just give that a D. Another filler Aladdin, another D there. We have Markowski, 4-cost inkable 3/2/2 evasive. Another filler card, but kind of nice. Probably just a D, but could be a C in the right deck. We got Abu here, very similar to the Magic Broom. 5-cost, uninkable 4/4/2 rush. Pretty filler. Not going to see play, just going to be a D, but cool card. Nice effect for draft. That effect in draft is very, very good. This card's really good in draft. Highly recommend that. Same thing for the Markowski here, also good in draft. All right, we got Mickey Mouse, Courageous Sailor, 3-cost, inkable 2/4/1. Gets +2 strength while out of location. It's a pretty D level effect, not really that good. You have Adorabeezel, Winter Pop. These names are atrocious. Like I understand Wreck-It Ralph and they're wanting to do cool names, but man, does that make it hard for Lorcana here. 3-cost inkable 1/5/1. While this character has damage, he gets +1 lore. These effects just have never really worked out. It's also pretty lackluster that it's essentially a 1/4/2 if you enable it. So this looks like a D, honestly more like an F. Just really, these cards just don't tend to work. But yeah, I guess D's are like, it's playable, so I guess D means it's playable, but yeah, not an F. Yeah. So anyways, very cool Moana card here. So 1-cost inkable 3/2. With Hero Princess Pirate tags there. Can't challenge unless you have a captain in play. That being said, it can just quest. So you can just play it on turn 1, quest with it, and it's going to be traded for, at least in the early game. 3/2 is quite big. And then if you ever play any captains afterwards, you have, again, Captain Hook. You have cards like John Silver. So could maybe this kind of make this Ruby Steel archetype more interesting. So I'll definitely giving this a C. People are already trying to make this work in decks. I'll also note that there's the Moana Floodborn cards that are all over the game and just haven't really had a good shift target. This might be just that. John Darling is a D filler. You have Aladdin Intrepid Commander. 4-cost inkable 1/4/2. Hero Prince with Shift 2. When you play this, your characters get +2 strength this turn. I just don't see this working this well. Again, in was it a Ruby Steel? You have the 1-cost Aladdin to shift over top of, and then you have a 4-cost character. How good is that? I don't know. That being said, I could see this seeing a little bit of play. This coming down when you have a wide board and just killing all your opponent's things. Yeah, I'll give it a C. I'm not too excited by this card, but could be interesting. Thievery, each opponent loses 1 lore, you gain 1 lore. This looks pretty exciting as opposed to the other action in Amber that required you to have a character to kind of gain that additional lore. This is a pretty powerful effect to have in Ruby. Just lowering down your opponent's lore total while increasing yours seems really good. So yeah, I will note it says chosen opponent. I assume because they're trying to balance for multiplayer, so more of a single player card, not a multiplayer card. Lead the way. Your characters get +2 strength. This looks like a D, and just I'm not particularly excited by these cards. I got the Islands I Pulled from the Sea, a 3-cost uninkable action song. So that searches your deck for an action, or sorry, for a location card, puts it into your hand, and then you shuffle your deck. So just tutors your deck immediately for a location. I've seen decks try to put, players try to put this card in their deck. I've spoken a lot about how I don't really like the ability to search your deck for cards. I'm hoping that those effects remain fringe and not very playable and not very strong for as long as we can. And that's what we have here. Do I think that people are going to try out this card? Sure. I don't think it's going to be very good. I think this is a D. Again, not an F, because again, I think people are going to try it out. It's cool that you just get to go and find your best location, but yeah, not very excited by that card either. Got Longboat, 2-cost uninkable action, 2 cost to give chosen characters evasive until the start of your next turn, and you don't have to banish it. So kind of like Maui's Fishhook. Gains evasive until the start of your next turn. Yeah, this is just like the Fishhook, but cheaper to play, but you don't get the kind of free roll from Maui. Yeah, this looks like a D, just not very exciting. Take a little swig here. I'm feeling very techish. All right, next up we got the Gold Coin. 1-cost inkable item. Exert it, and 1 to banish this item. Ready chosen character yours. They can't quest for the rest of this turn. So could be good in Ruby Sapphire, just as a 1-cost item that has some additional utility in Hiram. Actually can see already decks trying to make usage of it. So it's a C. If it sees play, it's fine. Card Soldier Spear. This card's terrible. It buffs your damage characters. This looks. I'm giving it a D because it's an item, and that's always pretty relevant. But I really want to give this an F. I might give it an F. Actually, yeah, I'm giving this an F. This card is just so bad. I just can't see anyone using it. Next up, we got Skull Rock. 2-cost inkable location, 6 willpower, 1 cost to move. No lore here. Your characters get +1 while here. And at the start of your turn, if you have a pirate character here, gain 1 lore. This is a C, only because, again, the location deck has a lot of pirates. So in that case, the card, that'll be pretty good. But yeah, not flipping out about that card. All right, that's it for the Ruby commons and uncommons. Let's go to Sapphire. Ben here, 4/3/2 with support. It's just a filler card. It's a D. We got Aunt Cass here, 2 cost, inkable 1/3/1. Whenever this character quests, chosen inventor character gets +1 lore, so not the same as the alien card. So that makes this pretty weak, even if the inventor archetype is good, which again I don't think it is. So this looks like a D minus even. Again, it's not an F because it's fine. It's just not good. You got Gadget Hack Wrench, 3 cost, inkable 1/4/1. Oh, this is the whenever you play an item, this character gets +1 lore this turn. This is the card that I'm most excited for. Just a character that can come down and threaten if you just play a bunch of items in one turn, just get a huge rack of lore. You can play popsicles and forge spheres, just any more after that. This is kind of reminding me of the Who's It collector, the aerial Who's It collector from, I think it was set 1. And this is inkable, which is really nice. So it's an inventor, which is relevant. So yeah, I'm hoping that this card sees some play. So I'm going to give it a C. I'm excited to see if that card is good. Another interesting inventor that also works with the items here. The inventor thing is that they work with items. So you have 4 cost, inkable 3/3/2. Whenever it quests, you can return one of your items to your hand to pay 2 less for the next item you play this turn. So in the early game, you can bounce your popsicles, replay them for free. That's pretty nice. And then in the late game, you bounce your popsicle and you can play a dime for cheap, which could be good. So I know some people are thinking about making this card do some stuff. So yeah, definitely definitely going to be experimenting with this and could see play. Also a villain, which is cool. Maybe there's a villain deck that does the thing. We got Pleaky here, 3 cost, inkable 3/4/1. It is an alien, which is relevant. And then when you play it, you can put chosen character of yours into your inkwell face down and exerted. So you can kind of turn one of your characters into ink. That being said, how good is this? I'm not sure. You can take your Tipo, like you can play Tipo on 2, ramp a little bit, and then play this and put your Tipo into your inkwell after you like quest with it or something. So I don't know how good this is. I could see it being a C. It could make a little bit of usage, but I don't know how much you want to put a character into your inkwell, especially if, just to get a little bit of ramp. So yeah, not super excited by that. Next up, we got Hiro Hamada, Robotics Prodigy, 3 cost, inkable 0/3/1, and you can exert it and pay 2 to search your deck for an item or robot and shuffle your deck and then put it on top. So doesn't immediately add it to your hand, but kind of sets you up to get it later. Again, like with all of the effects that search so far, they've been pretty lackluster, and I'm hoping that we continue with that. Yeah, this looks not terrible, but just really too slow and kind of underwhelming. Again, if there's like a kind of combination, again, you could play this and search for your dime. How good is that? I don't know. Not particularly excited by this card, but I could see play. I'll give it like a C, maybe a C minus, D plus. Yeah. Next up, we got the blue Hey Hey. I think we finished the cycle on Hey Hey. I think we have one in every single color. All right, we have an amber, we have a ruby, we have steel. Yeah, we have every single Hey Hey, so that's cool. 2 cost, inkable 2/2/1. You play this character, exert chosen opposing item, and can't ready at the start of its next turn. And then it has evasive during your turn. So kind of a tech card against a card like Lucky Dime or Fishbone Quill. Yeah, otherwise not really a card that I'm super high on. Sour Bill, 3 cost, inkable 2/3/2. When you play this, opposing character gets weaker this turn. The stats are nice, but the on-play effect doesn't really do too much. So it's looking like a D, just not really that good. And then Nick Wild here, 1 cost, inkable 1/2/1. We have another character with support in play, gets +2 power. So it could be kind of interesting to follow this up with a support character on turn 2 and then use it to challenge something. So I'll give it a C. It could see play, but Not too high on it. I think there is also a Nick Wild that has Shift 1, which is also relevant. So that could kind of be cool. We'll get to that card in a moment because it's just up here. But so that could kind of be relevant. But yeah, next up we got Wasabi. When you play this character, you may banish chosen item. Its player gains 1 lore. So 4 cost 3/3/1 with that effect is pretty nice. Just incidental item removal, but you can also use it on yourself to gain a lore, and then it gains evasive during your turn. So this is a potential way to answer a Diablo. A little bit slow, but I guess if you have Popsicle on 1, like one of your ramp effects on 2, you can play Wasabi on turn 3, and then, your opponent's gotten a couple of cards off of their Diablo, assuming they played it and shifted it. But yeah, then you can just get a lore off of your Popsicle and then take out a Diablo. It could see play. I'll give it a C. All right, let's talk about this Sly Fox, 3 cost inkable 1/3/1, Shift 1, which we have not seen. We've either seen Shift 2 or like the shift cost like the Diablo. We have not seen Shift 1, which is kind of cool. And then while you have an item in play, this character can't be challenged. So that's kind of cool. You just play the Nick Wild here on turn 1, and then on turn 2, you could play like this plus a Popsicle, and now you have a pretty difficult character to interact with. Kind of cool. Gadget here, just a filler card. It's a D. Same thing about this guy. Same thing with this yokai. All right. For one of the best cards in the set, I think everyone's kind of aware of this card. Sail the Azurite Sea, 2 cost inkable action. This turn you may put an additional card from your hand into your inkwell face down and draw a card. So for note, this is not the fishbone type of effect. The card does still have to be inkable. Think back to what's her name? Not Cinderella. Belle, Strange but Special, back from set 1. This is Explore from Magic. If you are a Magic player and you like Explore, this is here you go. This is the same card. It will see the same amount of play, which is a lot. This is, oh God, is this an A? I don't think it goes in everything else, single Sapphire deck. I guess I'll put this in B, kind of alongside Fishbone Quill. So yeah, I guess if Fishbone Quill is a B, this is also a B. Again, just so kind of I can be consistent and people can kind of understand what I mean. But yeah, that card's going to be really, really good. Helping Hand, 1 cost, uninkable, action, something get support, draw a card, sure. Like, it's fine. D+, like, maybe it does something, but not high on it. This is another card that I kind of disagree with people on. So, prepare your robot, 1 cost, inkable, action. You either ready an item or you ready a robot, and they can't quest for the rest of this turn. A lot of people trying to think about the magical Christmas land of using this with Lucky Dime. I was actually thinking about it more for Fishbone Quill, where you play Fishbone Quill on 3, you ink a card from your hand, you play Prepare Your Robot to ready your Fishbone Quill, and then you ink another card. And then you start doing the Hiram Flaversham thing. Again, in this case, I still don't think either of those cases are good enough, unless, and I'm adding a caveat here, unless the second part of this card is relevant, unless the Sapphire deck started running a robot that could be challenging or could be doing things, then I think this card could be used. The big thing with any type of modal card, any type of card that has multiple ways in which it can be used, if almost 99% of the time you're only using one of the modes, it's not really a modal card. Right? You're not using the card to its fullest extent. The thing that makes the modal cards good is that they are flexible. They can be used in a variety of ways, and unless that happens with this card, it's just not going to be good enough. I don't think you would play this card if it read 1 cost action, ready a chosen item. At least that's my opinion. But yeah, so I think this is a D. Again, it could change, but right now I'm not high on this card. Next, I've got Baymax's Healthcare Chip, 2-cost inkable item. Choose one, remove 1 damage from a character, or if you have a robot in play, you remove 3 damage. This is a D. Again, not. I want to give it an F, but the 3 damage removal is kind of powerful, and the fact that this is free, so could be good, but yeah, not high on this, but maybe if there's a deck that could see its usage. All right, next up we got Microbots, 2-cost inkable item. You can have any number of Microbots in your deck, so kind of like the what's it called? The 99 Dalmatians cards. But this is an item, and when you play it, chosen character gets -1 strength this turn for each item named Microbots in play. This is an F. This looks so bad. I really don't see this card being used. You'd have to have so many of these cards to really kind of be stacking up that kind of benefit. And yeah, this is a flavor card. This is like a cool card because it's like one of these guys, and they're all here in the artwork. Very, very cool for the kind of storytelling, but not good for what we're doing here. Next up, Jumbo Pop, 3-cost uninkable item. Banish this and remove 2 damage from each of your characters and draw a card. Very powerful if you actually get this off. The main issue with this card is it's uninkable. But yeah. I'm going to give this a D. Could there be a deck that makes usage of this? Maybe, but yeah, for now, I think this is a D and not really that exciting. Next up, we got Institute of Technology, 1-cost inkable location, 5 willpower, 1 cost to move. Inventor characters here get 1 extra willpower, and then start of your turn, if you have a character here, you gain 1 lore. So very similar to Casita in Amethyst. But again, giving you a little bit of benefit from the inventor tag. But this looks like a D unless the inventor's deck really, really wants this. Yeah, it looks like a D. Yeah. All right, that's it for the Sapphire commons and uncommons. Let's take a look at the Steel commons and uncommons. So we got Kakamora. 1-cost uninkable 0/2/1. Play this if you have another pirate in play. Deal 1 damage to a character or location. It's kind of interesting that it works with itself, right? If you have this, if you have a Kakamora and you just play another one, the other one will see, hey, I deal a damage. That being said, I don't think this is good enough. The 0 strength is really kicking me. So this looks like a D. It's fine. Get Jim Hawkins, 2-cost inkable 0/4/1. Whenever a card is put into your inkwell, this character gets Challenger 2 this turn. So notably, it's just whenever a card is put into your inkwell, so this could go up to Challenger 4 if you play a card like Sail the Azurite Sea. So that's pretty cool. And then just being a 2/4 that challenges. That being said, that is very similar to Dr. Basilier from set 1. And that card is unplayable now, so I'm guessing this ends up being more like a D. So, yeah. Next up, we got Smee. This is a D. It's a filler. It is a pirate, which is nice. Got decent stats. It's got evasive during your turn. Next up, we got Mullins. 5-cost, inkable, 6/4/1. And it's pirate. And if you have Smee in play, it has resist 1. This looks like a D. Honestly, an F. It's just like so underwhelming as a 5-cost character. Kahoot, another D filler. Same thing with King Hubert here. Hercules, 4-cost inkable 2/4/2 with Challenger 2. It's also a hero and a prince. This is not bad. It's just not great. Looks like a D, maybe a D+. I do like it. Very good in draft. Again, would highly kind of take this highly in draft. Next up, we got John Silver, 3-cost inkable 3/3/1. all the same types. When you play this character, chosen character can challenge during their next turn. So kind of seeing this steal mechanic of preventing challenges. It's a D. Again, in limited, it's fine, but not really going to see too much play elsewhere. This is an interesting one. 2-cost Inkable 1/2/2. Mr. Arrow here. It's an alien with resist 1. So again, a relevant tag potentially, and then the resist one is nice. Kind of we've seen it with the Mickey Mouse from the last set that had resist 1. Early characters with resist do tend to be pretty good, just because they can survive the early challenges and kind of make it awkward. So this is definitely C. Definitely could see play. Next up, we got Jim Hawkins, 5-cost, uninkable, 5/5/2. So good stats, and it's a hero, and it's got shift 3, which is not bad. And then when you play this character, you may deal 1 damage to chosen character or location. That's pretty underwhelming. A ping on play is nice. This look more like a powerful limited card than a constructed card. So yeah, I'll give it a D plus. Like it's pretty nice for its rate. Again, we do have the Floodborn here as well. That's a not a bad target. But I'm not particularly high on this, so yeah, just a D, but it's not a terrible card. Tuk Tuk here is another D. It's a filler. Billy Bones here, 3-cost inkable 2/2/2, and when it's banished, you banish an item or location. This could be pretty good actually in comparison to Rise of the Titans. Just being a character that can quest, and then if there's a scenario where you really need to answer an item or location, you can trade it off. So if you're ever able to trade off for a character and kill an item or location, that's pretty good. It is also unbanished, so if your opponent is playing Ruby Amethyst and they play Be Prepared while they have a Queen's Castle, Billy Bones will still take out that Queen's Castle and prevent them from gaining any lore off of it. So yeah, this is definitely playable, definitely a C. The fact that it's just a character that can just quest is pretty good. Oh, another card that I guess maybe I just wasn't paying that much attention in spoiler season, because some of these cards have skipped my feed. Let's say. So we got Pluto Guard Dog here, 4-cost inkable 1/4/1. It's got Bodyguard, and then while it has no damage, it gets +4 power. So it's a 4-cost 4/5 with Bodyguard, and then they have to basically just nuke one of their own characters to just weaken it, and that's not even actually killing it, right? It still has the 5 willpower, so it still has the Bodyguard. That seems pretty nice. I'll give it a C. Like I definitely think that there could be usage for it. Kind of nice with Rapunzel. Actually, that's pretty cool. You play this, you challenge with it, you remove all the damage off of it, it gets stronger again. So that's kind of cool. Next up, we got Mickey Mouse Night Watch. So kind of these two cards, kind of telling a story together. 3-cost inkable 2/3/2. Your Plutos gain resist 1. Nice. So you can kind of play Mickey Mouse, play Pluto to follow it up, and that's a nice little start. Cool. Next up, we got Hot Potato, 3-cost inkable action. Choose one, deal 2 damage, or banish an item. So not quite as good as Smash, but could be good. I think the 3 damage threshold is going to be too important. And that's way more important than the item banishing, so I don't think it's quite good enough for constructed. Maybe you run a mix of both Smash and this. I don't know. Yeah, this looks like just a D, maybe a tech card. Yeah. Love this card. I'm Still Here, 3-cost inkable action song. Chosen character gains resist 2 until the start of your next turn. Draw a card. So pretty nice for Steel Song. One of the things that Steel Song doesn't always do really well is challenge. And so giving some of your random characters resist 2 to take something out while keeping damage off of it could be pretty powerful. And just having more songs in a deck that wants songs could be good. Next up, we got Twin Fire. Sorry, this is probably a C. That's my grade. I sometimes just forget to give the grades, to hand those out. Just like to chat. Twin Fire here is interesting. Deal 2 damage to chosen character, then you can discard a card to do it again. My understanding is it can't be the same character, but I could be wrong. But in any case, two cost and 2 cards to kill 2 things potentially is not bad, especially in the early game. So maybe play a 1-drop and then you play this on 2, and then you successfully kill 2 things. It's an action, not a song, so it can't be gotten by something like Ursula Deceiver. So yeah, pretty interesting. Yeah. The fact that this can kill 2 things means that it could definitely see some play. So I'll give it a C. Could definitely see some play. Next up, Unfortunate Situation. 4-cost inkable. Each opponent chooses a character and deals 4 damage to them. So we've seen this effect before. In this case, it's inkable, but the 4-cost on this makes it unplayable for me. This looks like an F. Again, in draft, this effect is fine. Just any way of just killing characters with your cards is pretty good. So, but besides that, this looks like a D, maybe even an F. Yeah, not high on this card at all, obviously. Next up, we got Training Dummy. I think I'm already going to hate this one. 2-cost inkable. Exert and 2 to give chosen character bodyguard until the start of your next turn. Yeah, this is a D. It's fine, but it's never really been that good. Even in limited, I'm not that high on this. Sunglasses, 4-cost inkable item. Exert to draw a card and discard a card. So in Magic, we call this looting, where you draw and then discard. So you're not going up on cards. You get to kind of fix your hand a little bit, but it's not a 4-cost item. I'm not high on this at all. This looks like a D, more like an F. I just would not play this in any scenario. I just don't want this in my deck. Constructed, limited, nothing. All right, here's the card that I was looking at. Galactic Council Chamber. So this is the other alien robot synergy card. 3-cost inkable location, 7 willpower, 1 lore, which is kind of nice, and then 1 cost to move. While you have an alien or robot here, this location can't be challenged. So the big thing that is important to point out is John Silver, the kind of big location synergy card, is an alien. So that could be a cool way to kind of make sure that John Silver has resist or extra lore, just preventing this location from being challenged. And then they have to either deal with the characters at the location or just kind of let this location roam free. So yeah, definitely a playable card. So definitely gonna be a C for me. All right, and I think that is all of the steel commons and uncommons. So now we get to talk about some of the cooler cards, the rares, super rares, and legendaries. All right, so now we get to talk about some of the more interesting cards, the rares. So starting again with Amber, you got Winnie the Pooh, 2-cost inkable, 2/2/1 supports. Hero Pirate, which is notable because whenever this character quests, you basically get a lantern effect for your next pirate. I'll give this a D. Again, if the pirate deck is good, it moves up to a C. Monterey Jack, it looks like definitely a D. Just really weird stats. Yeah, it's got big willpower, but also the Sisu in the tiny Sisu in Ruby exists, so that plays really badly into this, or this plays really badly into that. So not high on that card at all. Here's the interesting Chip and Dale. So 8 costs on inkable, so that's pretty hefty. But 6/6/3, shift 5, it counts as both of them. And then during your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, you can return a character from your discard to your hand. So very, very powerful late game value engine. But the question is, can you get this card down? And also, like, what are you shifting on top of? You have to play some of the other cards. This looks more like a D. Again, could there be a deck that just like ramps into this and just like slams this down? Maybe. There's also Mufasa, right? Mufasa could play this in their deck and flip into it or play it out early using Doc or Gaston. So, C minus. Like I think the biggest issue is that we know that, again, as you've seen from my previous video about overrated or underrated cards, these high cost uninkables really do have a cost. All right, next we got Judy Hopps, 6 cost inkable 3/6/2. It's got support. At the end of your turn, you may ready another chosen character of yours. Ooh, that's kind of nice. Maybe just a little curve topper for an aggro deck. The support is kind of nice. Yeah, this looks like a C. Like, it's fine. It could definitely see play. Oh, here's another Nani. Oh, I didn't know about this. 5 cost, maybe I did. 5 cost inkable 3/5/2. Got support, and then 2 ink to have chosen character get a -1 strength until the start of your next turn. Very interesting. This looks more like a D. The stats and the numbers on these cards just make it a little bit too clunky. But yeah, very good in draft. I will note. So here we have Kanga, the nurturing mother. 3 cost uninkable 2/4/1. Whenever this character quests, another chosen character of yours can't be challenged until the start of your next turn. This looks so nice. Like, it seems like this card could be cool, but there's so many ways to remove characters without questing. And then also you just challenge this instead in the meantime. So this looks more like a D. Again, decent and limited. But yeah, not too sure about that. Kind of similar here, safe and sound, same thing it looks like, but on an action. Looks just as, I would argue, even more unplayable. This looks pretty bad. So I'd say this is more like an F, but I'll leave it at a D, but yeah, both of these just seem kind of meh. We got Pooh Pirate Ship. 1 cost inkable item. Exert and 3 to return a pirate from your discard to your hand. So still not quite sure about this one. Very awkward that it's an item, but you will probably want to be running a lot of pirates, and you also probably want to be running a lot of locations, since those tend to go together. So how are you making room for this? It's also uninkable. So in the scenario where you don't want this, it's pretty bad. It's also 4 to get back a card when you can just find some other ways to draw additional cards from your deck. So yeah, this looks like a D. Again, I could see it being usable, but yeah, not high on this. What happened here? Oh, I just had those. Okay, there we go. So, was that really it? I always am like having to understand that there's less rares because we have the super rares and also we have the 6 colors instead of 5. Like, there would be a whole nother card in here, I think, if if we didn't have that. But yeah, cool. All right, on to the Amethyst cards. We got Hades, Lord of the Dead. 6 cost uninkable 3/4/3. So very nice stats there. Tough that it's uninkable, a little bit expensive, but during your opponent's turn, whenever one of your other characters is banished, you gain 2 lore. So it could be a very good curve topper again for any type of aggressive deck. They play something like Be Prepared or Sisu, and you just get a huge burst of lore. Makes it really difficult to play around in the late game. Definitely C level card, could see play. Just depends on what the decks look like and how much do you want that type of effect. So I got Madam Mim, Tiny Adversary, 2 cost, inkable 031 Challenger, and then your other characters gain Challenger 1. How good is this? Probably not. It's a 1/3 essentially, and then giving your other cards Challenger is nice. But how is this different than just like Lumiere that just gives your characters +1 strength? So yeah, this looks like a D. Not very good. Here's the interesting Rafiki. I love this, the look of this card, but 9 cost, uninkable. So really expensive, but 6/6/4. So again, huge stats on this. So definitely worth the cost. Shift 7, and then during your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, you get to draw a card. So ink, like basically letting you ink for free. So this is definitely obviously a late game card, obviously because it's 9. This I'll give a C. It definitely could see play, but I'm very skeptical on it. I'm not very high on this. On the other hand, I love this card. Genie Wish Fulfilled. 4 cost, uninkable, 2/4/2 evasive. When you play this, draw a card. Fantastic. Very similar to Rabbit, but a little bit better stats. Obviously, you don't have that bounce synergy. But yeah, this looks really good. Definitely going to see some play. I don't think it quite makes it up to the B range, but I'll leave it at like a C+. Yeah. Got Mama Odie here, 5 cost, uninkable, 4/5. When you play a song, it does the move damage thing. This looks like a D. These effects just never really work out. Next up, we have Seeking the Half Crown, 5 cost, uninkable. Draw 2 cards, but if you for every sorcerer you have in play, you pay 1 less. So if you have 5, this could be free. That being said, it is uninkable. It requires you to have a lot of cards in play. And we kind of already have this type of effect in Friends on the Other Side. And yeah, I don't really see a reason to run this over that. So this looks like a D. Again, I could see moving up to see if there's a lot of characters with the sorcerer tag. This is not hard to achieve. It's a question of how often are you getting enough characters to make it worth. All right, next up we have Maleficent Staff, 2 cost, inkable item. Whenever one of your opponent's characters, items, or location is returned to their hand from play, you gain 1 lore. This I find really interesting. So initially, people were looking at this as, oh, this is just kind of anti-Madam Mim tech. I could see that, but that doesn't really make sense to me. I like the idea of using this in a control deck, and you kind of use this to incrementally gain lore over the course of a game. You just play any of the, Poor Unfortunate Souls. You can play this with Emerald and play Mother Knows Best with Ursula, and you can bounce 2 things. How good is that? Probably not very, but I could definitely see a world in which this card sees a little bit of play, but this probably is just a D, maybe a D+. It could make its way up to a C if it's really that good. Next up, we got the Mystical Tree, Mama Odie's place, so it's going to do the move damage thing. So 2 cost, 1/7, okay. Start of your turn, it may move damage from a character here, and then at the start of your turn, if you have Mama Odie here, gain 1 lore. This is an F. This is like so bad. Again, great for people who want to kind of do the thematic thing with Mama Odie or have a lot of cards from the same movie franchises, but for constructed playability, this is just so bad. So cool. Next. All right. Yeah, Jasmine here, 3 cost, inkable, 2/3. When you play this character, you can either exert a damaged character or give a character reckless. So interesting that this is almost kind of like an inkable not John Silver, Lyle effect. And then maybe you could be used as like a Pinocchio for damaged characters. Is that good enough? It could be. It's playable, right? So I'll give it a C. Next up, we got Captain Hook, Underhanded, 3 cost, inkable, 1/4/2. While this character is exerted, opposing pirate characters can't quest. Very interesting that it's kind of like an anti-pirate card, but itself is a pirate. And whenever this character is challenged, draw a card. So this is interesting in that it's a card, a captain you can play after you play Smee. That is kind of cool, and can give you a lot of lore early. So maybe an Emerald Steel pirate list really is good enough. Who knows? But again, sea level card, perfectly playable. Next up, we got Stitch, Alien Buccaneer, 4-cost inkable, 3/4/2. Shift 3, and then when you play this character, if you use Shift to play him, you put an action from your discard on top of your deck. So really interesting that since Bucky, then I think they're realizing that they want to. There's some usage for the Shift mechanic outside of just getting a Floodborn. They can kind of make these more interesting effects, but add that restriction in. So as we saw from the Merlin in the previous set. That being said, this is pretty weak. This looks like a D. You can play it normally, but then you don't get the effect. This doesn't really let you go up a card. It puts a card on top of your deck. Yeah, it's just a little bit underwhelming. Got Go-Go here, 2-cost inkable, 2/2/1. It's got evasive. When you play this, you can pay 2 to gain lore equal to the damage on chosen opposing character. So kind of like the inverse of Rapunzel. Being just a 2/2 evasive is kind of nice. We've seen Sir Hiss be a playable card. So the fact that this is just that, with a little bit of different stats with some upside, probably means this is at the very least a C. Goofy is a 5-cost inkable, 1/4/3 with ward. It's also a hero inventor. When this quests, it gives another character ward until the start of your next turn. So again, protecting it from being targeted, but this has to exert, and so this thing can die. Maybe you combine it with a character that you want to protect on the next turn. So you play this, you play the character you want to protect, and then you quest and give it ward. It still looks pretty weak to me. I'm going to give it a D, but I could see it moving up to a C. All right. Here's a cool one in Olivia Flaversham. So the Flaversham family sneaking its way into the set. This is a color shifted Pinocchio. So pretty cool. Is that enough to make an Emerald aggro deck? Again, we have the Merfolk on turn 1, this on turn 2. That's a lot of lore early, and could be good. Yeah, it's definitely a C. All right, here's an interesting one in You Came Back. 3-cost uninkable action, ready chosen character. Period, end of discussion. No can't challenge, no can't quest, none of that, just ready it. So already a lot of people trying to break this card. So you have Tigger that wants to play a lot of actions, which we'll look at when we get to Ruby. There's some P decks from the card from set 2, right? That wants you to play a lot of actions as well. So, excuse me. Definitely a lot of ways in which you can use this card. All right, next we have Owl Island, an uninkable location for 3, 6 willpower, 1 cost to move. For each character you have here, your first action costs 1 less. And then whenever you play your second action, you gain 3 lore. Very interesting card. Again, unfortunately, this is another one of those cases of it just requires too many different types of cards to really work. So you have to have this out. You have to have characters in play, and they have to be at this location. And then you have to play 2 actions in order to get the full effect of this card. It looks cool. If you ever get it off, congrats. This looks like an F to me. I really think this is going to be one of the cards that you open in a pack and are upset because it's just an absolutely weird, wonky card that's just not what you want. All right, next up, we got Raya here. This is one of the better Rayas that I've seen. 4 cost, 3/3/2. During your turn, whenever you ink, you ready another character, they can't quest. So pretty standard effect that we've seen, but again, the fact that this can be a repeatable effect is nice. I will say they did good here, making it so that it can't ready itself, because that would make it a pretty annoying card to deal with. Next up, Wendy Darling, 2 cost uninkable 1/2/1. It's got evasive. It's a hero pirate captain, and while you have any other pirate in play, it gets +1 strength and +1 lore. So notably not +1 willpower. So at most it's a 2/2/2. It does have evasive, which is kind of nice. So there could be a deck where, again, you just have enough pirates. It is also a captain, so it works with Mr. Smee. So again, the Ruby Steel Pirate deck could make use of this. So again, assuming that deck sees a bit more play, I'll go ahead and give this a C. It's fine. Next up, we got the Moana here, which again, since I now know that we have a 1 cost Moana, this looks pretty good. So 7 cost inkable, 6/5/1. All of those tags you see there, shift 5, and then when you play this character, you can move any number of your characters to the same location for free. That's pretty powerful. And then gain 1 lore for each character you moved. So again, the instantaneous lore, really, really nice. And yeah, this looks like a C. A lot of people playing around with this card already. We'll definitely see if there's a way that we can break this card. Filler, Pete, it's a D. Next up, we got Goofy here, 6 cost uninkable, but it's a 5/5/1 rush evasive. So very, very interesting card. Absolutely fantastic in draft, I'm going to add. Is it good enough for constructed play? I'm not sure. It looks more like a D. It's a little bit clunky. It doesn't quest very aggressively, but yeah. And the 6-drop slot, again, there's so many good 6-drops that we'll get to. So looks more like a D. Here's the interesting Tigger that I mentioned before. 3 cost inkable 0/4/1. It's got evasive. It's got the pirate tag. And also, whenever you play an action, it gets +1 strength and +1 lore. So again, people are trying to use this alongside some of the other action synergy cards and just use that you came back card, play a bunch of actions, quest for a lot, ready it, and then do it all again. This looks fine as a card. But it looks more like a D. Again, it's a C if that deck actually turns out to be playable, but I'm really not sure right now. My guess is it ends up being more towards the D range. Maybe it ends up creeping up to like a C- level. Energy Blast here is super bad. We have Dragonfire. This is 2 more to do the same thing, but draw a card. But how are you ever playing this? And why would you choose to do that? In Limited, it's really good. Again, as we know, banishing characters is good in Limited. Outside of that, pretty bad. So F. Don't play it. Next up, we got Flotilla. I think I'm pronouncing that right. 2 cost, uninkable location, 6 willpower, 2 to move. At the start of your turn, if you have a character here, each opponent loses 1 lore, and you essentially gain 1 lore. Again, it has the multiplayer text here, but we're talking about in constructed for 1v1. So this is fine for the again the Ruby Steel Pirate deck. It looks like a C-, probably more like a D. The uninkability, I think, is a problem. Yeah, probably ends up being more like a D. All right, over to Sapphire. We got Zipper. Oh boy, that's funny. 3 cost inkable 2/2/2. Got ward, and then whenever you ink, some guy gets resist 1. Looks like a C. I could see it being used. The ward is nice. The fact that it can get ward. What's another chosen character? Dang. That's fine. It's a C-, I guess. If it could give it to itself, that would be really good. But yeah, looks like a C to me. Sorry, D+ maybe. Anyways, Hero Hamada, 4-cost inkable, 1/1. Inventors, Gav Resist. You can pay 2 to look at the top card of your deck and either put it on top or bottom. This looks like a D minus. Like it's like, again, why would I like the inventor stuff doesn't look like it's going to work out well, and if so, it's using Hiram and using items and kind of facilitating that. So this just looks really weird to include here. Next up, we got Tadashi. This looks kind of interesting, but I'll kind of talk about some of the issues here. So 3-cost uninkable 2/2/2. During your opponent's turn, if they banish it, you get to, you may put the top card of your deck into your inkwell, then put this card into your inkwell. So you get 2 cards in your inkwell, but it's only during your opponent's turn. So you can't swing this into something and yourself and get the benefit. Your opponent has to actually take it upon themselves to banish this. So that takes out a lot of agency with this card. That being said, if you are playing an aggressive deck and you don't mind having some cards added to your inkwell, you could play this card, play it out, and kind of play aggressively, and then eventually your opponent's going to be forced to remove this, and then you kind of get that payoff. So looks like a C-level card, seems to be pretty fine. It's just, again, not as good in the ramp traditional ramp decks that we've seen. So yeah, just noting that. Next up, we got Baymax, 3-cost inkable 0/4/2. Hero Robot. If you have an inventor, you can pay 1 less to play it, and then you can pay 2 to heal up a character. This looks like a D. The questing for 2 is nice, but the 0/4 is not. Also, not really sure what inventors you play on turn 1 to play this on turn 2. And then again, that removal of damage is pretty whatever. What's not whatever is this Hiram Flaversham, 2-cost uninkable 0/2/3. So almost like Pinocchio, doesn't have that strength, but that doesn't really matter since you're going to be questing aggressively. So it'd be interesting to see if we do see an aggressive Sapphire deck. It is not a hero. I know a lot of people want the Amber Sapphire hero deck to work. Not a hero, but it is an inventor. So again, maybe that tag does end up being relevant there. All right, next up we have the Yokai Scientific Supervillain, 9-cost inkable 6/10/2. Huge stats on this card, but does have shift for 6. You may play items named Microbot for free. And then whenever this character quests, draw a card for each opposing character with 0 strength. So again, it's the thematic thing. Again, this looks like a D. It is strong stats, but the actual ability there, unlikely to work out. Again, the Microbot text there is almost like flavor text to me. Really don't see a deck that's going to be running so many of these Microbots. If Microbots drew a card, if they were more like Popsicle, it'd be great, but obviously that's not the case here. Maybe in the future we'll see more Microbots, and that changes. But for now, we have the one, and not interested in that. Next up, we got We Could Be Immortals, 4-cost inkable Song. Your inventors gain 6 resist this turn, and then you can put this into your inkwell face down and exerted. This looks like another D to me. The fact that it only gives resist on your turn requires a lot. You have to have inventors you want to challenge with, and then you also have to have this as if you're singing it, you have to have a character you can sing with, or you have to pay the cost for it. It just really doesn't seem like the card that really is going to make the inventor deck work. So yeah, looks more like a D. And then here we have the Rescue Rangers Submarine, 2-cost inkable location, 8 willpower, 1 cost to move. Start of your turn, if you have a character here, you do the 1 jump ahead. So you put the top card into your inkwell. That seems pretty exciting. The question is that good enough to kind of put this card in your deck and work towards it? And how many times do you really need to get this to feel like you've done it? I'm going to start this card off at a D though. Again, we have to really see how much you want to ramp. Again, my guess is the cards like Azurite, Sail the Azurite Sea, are going to be way better than this. So yeah. And then last of our rares, again, we got the super rares and the legendaries after this. We got Steel, we got Kakamora, Pirate Chief, 7 cost, uninkable 4/6/2. When this quests, you may draw a card and then choose and discard a card to deal 1 damage to chosen character or location. But if you discard a pirate card, you deal 3 damage instead. Very cool effect. I like that we kind of care about what cards we're discarding. That being said, it's way too expensive. Uninkable, not enough to make it constructed playable, but could be good in draft. So important to watch out. You do need to make sure that you have enough pirates to make it work, because dealing 3 is a lot better than dealing 1. But yeah, got Mr. Big, 4 cost uninkable 1/1/3. This can't be challenged by characters with strength 2 or greater. So you have to have a 1 or a 0. Of note, the challenger tag does matter, because I believe in my reading of the rules, it becomes an illegal challenge as they are trying to initiate it. So it doesn't work in that case. In any case, this looks like a D. Really not impressive of a card. There's just so many effects that can take this out. Not to mention most decks are playing some type of low power characters between Sisu, even the control decks like Sisu and Hiram, and then just like cheap cards like Diablo and the Lilos and stuff like that. There's absolutely going to be ways. Daisy Duck can kill Mr. Big pretty easily. So the fact that this random 1 cost character can just kind of easily take care of Mr. Big really does not have me have high hopes for this card. Next up, we got Cobra Bubbles. 5 cost inkable 3/4/2. It's got bodyguard, excuse me. And then you can pay 2 to loot once again. Kind of like what was on the sunglasses. This is a little bit better because it's on a body, like it's on a character with bodyguard, but not enough to make me like this card. Looks more like a D. Gontu I'm excited for. Gontu I think is a C level at the very least. 5 cost inkable 4/3/4. And it's an alien captain. So again, has that captain tag, also the alien tag, 2 relevant types. And the fact that this just comes down, it doesn't die to something like Medusa immediately. It does die to Smash. It does die to like something like Strength if they have enough characters. But you just play this and they don't have an answer for it. And wow, you're off to the races. Next up, we got Calhoun. 2 cost uninkable 3/2/1. It is a hero. It's got resist 1, and then during your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you gain 2 lore. So pretty powerful early drop in a steel deck. Very similar to kind of Robin Hood. Maybe this just goes in a Robin Hood deck since you're wanting to challenge anyways. If this if ever is played against something like an aggro deck, it's just insane because they just can't quest if their characters have 1 strength, because it just doesn't deal any damage to Calhoun, and then if you kill them, they're gaining lore. It just seems crazy. And then in the other scenario where, this isn't giving you lore, it's actually like if you're playing against a Sapphire deck, it's actually not that bad. You can just play it and just quest with it, and it gives you a lore. It's really not that bad. This looks pretty good. I'm going to put this at a C. Definitely like that card a lot. I had so much to say about this card when it came out. I'll talk about it. I don't like this design. 3 cost, uninkable action. Exert one of your characters to deal damage equal to their strength to chosen character. So once again, because it has this symbol here, it means that you can't use this on a drying character. It has to, or sorry, on a wet character, on a character whose ink is drying. You have to use it on a dry character in order for it to work. And that just completely ruins this card. Already requiring you to have a character and also not being able to be sung, all these things. This is just an F. I hate this design. I really wish, while this is the card that people look at and have the argument for removal in Lorcana is really not good. I know a lot of people think it is because of the control X, like Ruby Sapphire, that have Medusa. But outside of that, the removal in Lorcana is really not that good. And this is a prime example of that. All right, next up we got the King Censor. This is kind of like the counterpart to the Queen Censor. 3-cost inkable. Princes and Knights get +1 resist. And you can do the search for the pirates, the Princes and Knights from your deck off the top. The Queen Censor really hasn't done much. It hasn't taken off. It's been like a fringe playable card. That being said, there are some decks that do use it, so I'll give this a C in the sense that like Queen Censor is seeing some play, not high level play, but fringe play, and so this might be able to see some play as well. All right, here's another card that again that I've talked about. I might make a video on just this and the concept of what I mean by poor design. Another card that's poor design, in my opinion, Treasure Mountain, 5-cost, uninkable, location, 9 willpower, which is insane, 2 lore, and 2 to move. So already, giving very, very, very similar RLS Legacy vibes or Queen's Castle vibes, like the fact that it is a decently costed location with a decent willpower and 2 lore. We like really, really good. Secret Weapon. At the start of your turn, deal damage to chosen character or location equal to the number of characters here. So, classic steel mechanic, right? You put characters here, you get to deal some damage. First, just want to say, definitely a C-level card. The interaction with cards like Jim Hawkins could be cool. There's also the Moana card. You move a bunch of characters here, get a bunch of lore, and then now you have a bunch of characters there. You can start to deal damage. The thing that I will just quickly mention that I don't like about this card is that this effect is not an optional effect. So if your opponent does not have any characters in play or any locations, you're forced to deal damage to one of your own things. And again, a lot of people are like responding to me by saying like, oh, who cares? You're winning the game if that's the case. I get it. It's just kind of a feels bad of you enabled this card, you did all this work, and now all of a sudden your card is working against you. It's just not something that I think is great. But again, that doesn't affect the actual balance of the card. I think in terms of playability, it'll definitely see some play. So definitely a C. Could be C+, because I actually do think that this card could see some serious play with Jim Hawkins. This looks like a little bit better than... Right, Jim Hawkins was... Right, what's the location? 4 or less. Oh, sorry, never mind. 4 or less, so scratch that. But still good outside of that. I forgot that this is a 5-cost location. So can't play with Jim Hawkins, but is still good to just play out. The 9 willpower is huge. Again, Moana, moving a bunch of characters here. The move cost is expensive, but still think it could see some play. All right. So we did all of that. Now we're going to super rares. All right. Starting off with a banger here, Lilo Escape Artist, 2-cost inkable, 1/2/2. Start of your turn. If this is in your discard, you get to play her, and she enters play exerted. So one of the first ways we've seen of kind of rebuying a card from your discard pile. Definitely going to see some play, or at least we're going to try it out. So definitely C-level card. Could see it moving up to a B. But the question is, how much of a cost is that coming into play exerted? As we saw, there are some cards with the resist that are pretty good at challenging. If you have that, you can just start endlessly challenging into that, and so that could be problematic. So let me yoink this out of here. All right. Then we got Jim Hawkins, the big pirate guy, 7-cost inkable, 4/7/2, bodyguard. It's got all those tags, and then it looks for pirates. This looks like a D. Again, could be better if the pirate deck works, but I don't think it will. We just haven't. I've just never seen any typal archetype that has actually worked out. All right, next up, Sugar Rush Speedway, 2-cost, uninkable, 7 willpower location, 6 to move. Holy moly. But when you move a character here from a location, you may banish this location to gain 3 lore and draw 3 cards. So first of all, this is the first first super rare location, right? We've seen common, uncommon, and common and uncommon and rares before, but this is the first super rare location. The effect is quite large. The question is, what do you have to do to enable this? We saw the Moana card in Ruby that we just saw, so maybe that deck can make usage of that. Also of note, this works well with Jim Hawkins in that when you play a location, this card can move here for free. So if you have Jim Hawkins at a location and then you play the Sugar Rush Speedway, you can immediately move Jim Hawkins over to the Sugar Rush Speedway. It moved here from a location, and then you can use the ability. So that's a cool little combo. I'm going to give this a C in that I think people are going to try this out. We'll see how good enough it is. If you can manage to get this off efficiently without having to play too many bad cards, this looks pretty good. The fact that this gives you both lore and cards is huge. Like if it just gave you lore, it would be okay. If it just gives you cards, it would be okay. The fact that it gives you both is quite strong. All right, next up, here's the cool Sisu. I would love it if this card was good. I don't think it will be. 4 cost, uninkable, 3/3/2. Whenever this character quests, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a dragon, you put it into your hand and repeat this effect. Otherwise, you put it on top or bottom of the deck. So really, really strong in a deck with a lot of dragons. This quests, and you could potentially just be drawing a bunch of cards. We actually could see there is a decent amount of Sisus. Let me actually go back and just look at dragon. So we do have quite a bit of the Sisu. So you have Divine Water Dragon, Emboldened Warrior, Sisu, and the Sisu in her element. So you could... Is it good? Oh, sorry. You'd have to play Amethyst Sapphire or Amethyst Ruby. Yeah. Is that good enough? Probably not. This looks more like a D, but I really, really want this card to be cool because I like this. But no, it looks more like a D. You could try it out, and it might draw you a couple of cards. It is nice that it kind of looks at the top card even, so you can, if you don't like it, you put the card away and you've essentially scryed, or if you're familiar with Magic, you can kind of get a bad card off the top of your deck and potentially draw a new one later, but that doesn't make this card playable. Next up, we got Madam Mim, truly marvelous. 3 cost, uninkable, 2/3/1. You can pay 2 and discard a card to gain 1 lore. Pretty wild effect. Again, just a way of gaining lore outside of questing is always something to look at. This looks like a kind of an amethyst draw payoff where you draw a bunch of cards, you have a bunch of extra cards in hand, and maybe some of them don't gain you lore effectively. You just pay 2 and discard them, and boom, you've gotten a lore off of them. That being said, I don't think this is quite good enough. The uninkability is rough, and then the fact that you have to pay 2. If it was pay 1, maybe it would be a little bit better, but maybe that's too strong. So this looks like a D to me. It just looks like a little bit too weak of an effect. So yeah. Next up, Mad Hatter, Eccentric Host. The super rares here are really not impressing me too much so far, I'll note, which is kind of interesting. 1 cost, inkable, 1/1/1. Whenever this character quests, you can look at the top card of chosen player's deck and either put it on top or into their discard. So again, another one of those cards that people were looking at as a potential discard or a mill card. I don't think this is good enough. Again, I don't think the mill strategy works, and I don't think that outside of a mill deck, this is worth playing in a deck. So this looks like an F to me. I don't see why this is a super rare. This could have been a rare. Yeah, I'm not sure what the reasoning for this existing in the form that it is. So maybe I'm missing something, but yeah. All right, next up, Daisy Duck. 4 cost, inkable, 3/3/2. Whenever one of your pirates quests while at a location, draw a card. So another one of these emerald cards. It's another captain. So again, feeding more into that captain matters clause, the pirate clause. And this looks pretty good. I'm going to give this a C plus. I think definitely will impress me. I could see this moving up to a B if the pirate deck is really, really good. Because this definitely is a way of drawing cards. It is still another one of those cards that I mentioned before. I'll mention this because, again, I know people are going to be like, hey, wait a second. This is another one of those cards that needs, 3 different card types, right? You need this and a location. And I guess if you want to get other cards off of it, you have to have other pirates. But this works a little bit differently in that it kind of enables itself. It is a pirate. If you put this at a location and quest with it, you draw a card. And you can play a pirate, play a location, put the pirate there, then the next turn play this, and immediately get a card off of this. So all of this, and then combining that with it's inkable, and it's also just finely statted by itself, means that the downside of this card is relatively low. The floor of this card is high, the ceiling is high. So that's pretty good. So like that card a lot. Peter Pan here is 7 cost inkable 4/6/1. Enters play exerted, which is interesting, and that is actually an advantage because while this card is exerted, each player can't gain lore unless one of their characters has challenged this turn. So they have to challenge into something. They don't have to challenge into this. And that could be kind of interesting. By the way, it also counteracts lore gain from things besides characters. So locations and also things like Gathering of Knowledge and Wisdom or Merlin Goat. All these cards just don't gain lore unless a character is challenged. So very interesting card. Could kind of lead to some toxic gameplay. Again, kind of like Lyle Tiberius work if you can't deal with it. But just removing this card, if you have something like a Maui as well, that just cleanly gets rid of this. So this looks like a C minus. I could see a deck that maybe wants this, but it is fairly expensive. And it again only does one thing. So I don't really expect this card to do too much, but it kind of like Lyle, it could surprise me and really mess up some people's days. Bend to My Will. 7 cost, uninkable action. Each opponent discards all the cards in their hand. A lot of people are very hyped for this. For the Sapphire Emerald control deck or for just discard decks in general. Really hyped for this. I am not as high on this card right now. It's a expensive, uninkable action that doesn't affect the board. So if you draw this in a scenario where you're behind, it's really hard for this card for me to imagine that you're happy with this card. So that being said, having someone discard their entire hand, if you're able to ramp fast, get this off, and then stabilize from there, you probably will just win the game. So I'll put it at a C for now. Again, I don't think it's worth building your entire deck around this, but you could see if this can work in an existing shell like Sapphire Emerald. So we'll see. We'll see how this card shapes out. Got Mickey Mouse here, 5 cost, inkable 4/4/2, so good stats there already. Shift 3 is nice. And then whenever this character quests, Chosen Pirate gets +2 power, and whenever this character takes no damage from challenges this turn. Woo! Nice. So this looks like it's going to be pretty good with the in the Ruby Steel deck. So there's also a good shift target there in the 1 cost Mickey Mouse. You shift this over top. You quest with your 2 cost character you played the previous turn, and you get a nice trade-off. And then you're left with a 4/4, 2, and whatever the other character that you had. Could be Smee, because this is a captain, so 1 cost Mickey into Smee into Mickey Mouse Pirate Captain. Could be very, very strong. I like that a lot. Cool. Yeah, I give this I think I'll give it a C plus, but I couldn't see this being a B. This is quite good. I like this card a lot. Again, you also can just play this straight up as a 5 cost. Not bad at all. Mini Mouse Pirate Lookout, 3 cost uninkable, 3/2/1. During your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, you get a location back. Again, this could be good. The uninkability is rough, but it is a pirate. So again, in the Ruby location pirate deck, if that's playable, this will see play in it. So I'll give it a C. Again, all these are very hypotheticals. Being very careful with this because I don't know. It's really hard to tell if the archetype will be successful. So I believe I actually have not gotten a clear answer on this, of whether this is the misprint or if this is the misprint. It doesn't really affect my, my evaluation. Oh, that's not a disclaimer about this. Okay. Yeah, I wonder if it can tell me. Yeah, it doesn't really tell me. Let me see if I can change this to inkable. So it looks like here Dreamborn is classifying it as an uninkable. So I'm assuming that this is the typo, which really sucks. I don't really know what to say about this. I'm gonna skip over this and just evaluate this card right here. So 5 cost, uninkable, 4/2/3. When you play this character, you do Teeth and Ambition, so you do 2 damage to one of your characters to deal 2 damage to another character. You know, this is not bad. It's a character that can quest pretty well. You just have to have another character in play that can survive. And, you know, we know this kind of works well with these types of effects work well with Rapunzel. So maybe in the Mufasa deck, you play this as a way of having interaction. The Mufasa decks haven't really been running Teeth and Ambitions, but that's mostly because it's an action. And so maybe if you put this on a character, maybe that works out. So it's not bad, right? It's definitely a C plus at the very least. Like it's definitely going to come down and can definitely do some damage. Obviously, like really, really worst case scenario, you can come down. This can come down and trade with it. Like it can do 2 damage to itself to do 2 damage to something. Obviously, that's really, really bad. But in a pinch, you can still do that. So yeah, I think assuming this card is uninkable, the biggest knock is that it's uninkable. If it's inkable, that kind of raises the card by, I think, a whole tier because it really is just kind of easy to put into a deck then. But yeah, my guess is it's uninkable because that's usually how they do their removal effects. All right. Next up, we got the Floodborn Gadget. 6 cost, inkable, 3/6/3, shift 4. While you have 3 or more items in play, you play 1 less to play Inventor character. So this is more of what I was anticipating Inventors to be doing. So you shift quickly on top of this, or you just play this out, and then you get to kind of have items and Inventors in play, and you get to do that stuff more effectively. That being said, again, this looks more like a C- or a D level card, unless the Inventor deck is really, really good, and this is what the deck is doing. I don't really see this card being too good. It looks, again, like another one of those super rares that you're going to open and be a little bit upset that you opened. Tadashi Hamada, 6 cost, inkable, 3/3/3. So interesting stats here. It gets +1 willpower and strength for each item you have in play. So not raising its lore, but raising its stats. So any one item, and this is a 6 cost 4/4 with 3 lore on it. So that gets it out of Medusa range. Could be pretty good. The issue is that, again, in the issue for Sapphire decks is not, the top end. It's usually more of the cheaper end, finding cheap, efficient ways to affect the board. Usually by the time you have 6, 7, 8 ink, you're playing things like Tamatoa and you're winning the game. or you're playing Be Prepared. That being said, again, in the Inventor deck, maybe this is good enough. But again, this also confusing because you have both Gadget and Tadashi as your 6-cost cards. Again, Gadget having Shift, but do these both go in the same deck or do they not? I don't know. Yeah, a little bit strange. So for now, we'll give Tadashi a C. It's a fine card. It's not blowing me out of the water right now. Alice here, 3-cost, uninkable 1/4/2 with Ward, so decent stats. The Ward is nice. Whenever this character quests, another character gains +1 lore and Ward. So pretty nice if you have another character. Both of them just get to quest. You can then follow that up with a bodyguard, and maybe that protects the characters pretty well. Yeah, this looks like a C. It doesn't look amazing, but could be a decent aggressive card. This having Ward itself is pretty nice, just kind of guaranteeing that it can come down and quest. Very few cases where that's not going to be the case. Again, Be Prepared and Sisu are the two that come to mind. But besides that, this card should be able to get you some value. All right, next up, Smee, Captain the Jolly Roger, 6-cost, uninkable, 3/6/2. It's got all of those tags there, including Captain, and Shift 4. And then when you play this character, you may deal damage to chosen character equal to the number of other pirates in play. Not particularly strong on face value. It can shift over top of the Mr. Smee that we've seen. On the turn where it's actually going to, where it's about to die, you play Smee on 2. Turn 3, you quest with it. It goes to 1 damage. Turn 3, you quest with it again. It goes to 2 damage. And then on turn 4, you shift over top. And you have a 3/6 with 2 damage on it that doesn't no longer takes damage at the end of your turn. So that's pretty cool. And then if you have Smees on board that you already have, or you have some other pirates, you can play this out and maybe do some damage. Is that enough to make this card good enough to run? Not sure. It's definitely not amazing. It's probably like a C. Yeah, so unless again the pirate deck really pops off, looks more like a C. But yeah, it's cool. I like this effect. I like the card itself, and that we kind of have a card previously that we know it's going to work well with. So that gives me high hopes for deck building, at least with this card. All right, we got Captain Molly here, 4-cost, inkable 1/4/2. This character can't be challenged by pirates. Cool. So kind of anti-pirate stuff as well that we saw from there was the Captain Hook, and now we have the kind of the same thing here. While being challenged, your other characters gain resist 1. That's kind of cool. Again, just in a deck where you're playing a lot of characters, you follow this up, and assuming it's not removed, your opponent might have a more difficult time challenging. That being said, this looks just like a C, not particularly crazy. Again, even if pirates were a dominant type in the meta, it only protects itself from pirates. Again, it gives resist to the other characters, but it doesn't give resist to itself. And again, it can just be challenged by other characters. So yeah, I think just a C for now, it's fine, but not really freaking out about that card. Next up, we have Jafar, 5-cost, uninkable, 3/4/1. When you ink, you deal 1 damage to chosen character. Again, another weird thing about this card is it is not a May. Why is this not an optional effect? Like, if my opponent has no cards in play and I ink, I have to deal damage to my own character. I don't like that. Just giving some feedback in case Ravensburger is listening. I think that's pretty poor design. I think a lot of these effects should be optional. Again, inking is optional, but inking is something that you want to do most of the time. So why would you punish something that you want your players to do? Anyways, so that's just my 2 cents. On to the actual playability of the card. It's a little bit weak. The 1 damage is not too overwhelming. You can do it multiple times in a turn. It's a C. It's a C level card. Maybe it's his play. I'm not hype on it. Yeah. All right, and that's I think all of the super rares. So now we get to do the exciting legendaries. All right, so now we're on to the exciting ones. We got 2 legendaries in each color. So we got Tiana Restaurant Owner, 3 cost uninkable 1/4/2, Hero Princess, and then it has this very unique ability that kind of weakens a character that's challenging unless they pay ink. So whenever one of your characters is challenged while this character is exerted, the challenging character gets -3 strength, but this can be discounted if the player, the controller of that challenging character, pays 3 ink. Very difficult to evaluate. Still good into effects like Madam M Fox and Maui. Like if they play a Maui and they slam it down, the Maui challenges as a 3/5 instead of a 6/5. So that's pretty good. Since Tiana will survive it, and some of your other more higher willpower characters will also survive, but not some of your more aggressive characters like Lilo. So that presents a problem. So my guess is that this is not really that good of a card. Just the weakened stats, the uninkability, and then just the ability for your opponent to kind of also get through it as well. So even on the turn where they play something like a Maui, they can challenge something else that the Maui can kill, but then the next turn when you try to quest with this, now they just pay for it and kill your Tiana. Again, maybe that's good enough to kind of disincentivize, but my guess is that, again, this ends up being more like a C level card, not going to be outstanding. It is a princess and a hero. Those 2 tags are quite good. But yeah. On the contrary, Simba here is quite strong. 5 cost, uninkable 4/4/2, shift 3. At the end of your turn, if this character is exerted, you may ready your other characters. So for clarification here, a lot of people not understanding this card, it is a yes or a no. Do you ready all of them or none of them? So obviously you don't get to choose, but you this is kind of like Super Bodyguard, where you play this, you quest with it, and then your other characters, you quest with all your guys, and your guys are safe. Interesting thing that this is kind of what the Simba from set 1, the Bodyguard Simba, kind of evolves into, which is kind of cool. I kind of don't know why they didn't release those cards together. It kind of made sense. The shift target that we have that we saw earlier, one of the commons, not as good, obviously. So kind of confused by that. But anyways, in terms of this playability, this definitely looks like, I would say, I want to say A, but my guess is it's going to be more like a B, since you have to be playing a more aggressive Amber deck, and yeah, you kind of have to be, this also takes up an uninkable slot, and yeah. So probably a B level card, but definitely good, and it's definitely a card that people are going to be looking at. Amber Steel could be interested in this. Mufasa could be interested in this. There's definitely a lot of decks that could make usage of this card. It's a question of what other cuts or changes do you have to make to include this card. All right, we got Yzma here. Convincing Chemist. 4 cost inkable 3/3/2. Can exert if you have fewer than 3 cards in hand, you draw up until you have 3 cards. So this looks like it's going to be really good in any kind of aggro deck, really just any deck. This is an A for me. A lot of people are really not paying attention to this card. I think this card is being underrated right now, and usually I'm pretty good about gauging that. A lot of people saying, oh, if you're exerting it, you're not questing. But I'm pretty happy on this. 3/3 stats is pretty good. Could survive in the early turns. But you could also use it with your Madam Mim cards, where you exert it, bounce it back to your hand, and keep it safe. Yeah, this is just like, it's going to be good in any deck. Again, if you activate this and you draw 3 cards off of it, even if your opponent kills it and you didn't get any lore off of it directly, you got 3 new cards in your hand. Those cards are probably going to get you some lore. So I think this is an A. I think this is one of the cards that I'm most excited to play with. So yeah, A for Yzma. Similarly, again, a lot of people not hype on the Amethyst cards in this set. I'm pretty hype on them. Genie, Wonderful Trickster, 7 cost, inkable 4/7/2, shift 5. Whenever you play a card, you draw a card. Already sounds great. And then at the end of your turn, you put all the cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck in any order. That sounds like really, really bad. But again, whenever you play a card, you draw a card. So this I look at as a curve topper, again, for an aggro deck. Really just any deck that wants to empty out its hand. Because you play it out. It's your last card in hand. Cool. Your opponent has to answer that. If they don't, you just play off the top of your deck. You draw a card, you play that card, you draw another card. Even if you can't play that card, you just put it on the bottom of your deck and you go again. The next turn, you just draw another card, you play that card, and you just keep going. And you keep cantripping through your deck because every single card you play, you draw. The one thing that I did not realize about this card is that I thought it had evasive. It does not have evasive. The other Genie in the set has evasive. But that's all right. The 4/7 willpower on this is really big. It's very big. So the shift 5 is nice. And yeah, I think I'm pretty excited to play with this. Is it an A? I don't think so. I think it's more like a B, as it is good, but again, it kind of has to be used in that scenario. It's pretty bad in the early game, obviously. And it kind of has to be built around a little bit, right? You have to have a lot of cheap cards. You have to be able to empty out your hand effectively. Yeah, but I'm excited to play with this card and see if what I can do with that. All right, next we got Jasmine Royal Commodore, 6 cost, inkable 5/5/2, shift 5. And when you play this, if you use shift, you return all other exerted characters to their player's hands. So really, really interesting card for Emerald. Definitely could see some play in those types of controlling deck. The Sapphire Emerald deck, Emerald Steel could potentially make use of this with Morph, right? You just play out Morph and your opponent has to be aware of this potential, because if they just quest out, you play this, you bounce all the cards in their hand, and then you can quest. I will also add that it is symmetrical. You can quest with your characters and then bounce your own cards. So if that's something that you wanted to do, so that's pretty cool. So there's just so many ways to use this card. This is definitely a B. Again, it's not an A in the sense that it's going to go in every deck, but this is definitely a good tool for the control decks. I was kind of relating this to Milo Thatch from set 3. This is kind of what that card wants to be, right? Just the fact that this is inkable, and then the fact that it kind of immediately comes down and bounces a bunch of things means I think this card is going to be successful at doing that thing. All right, this card is really weird. This card I'm not hype about. Hercules, Baby Demigod, also hilarious art here. I love the snapshot of like the character, but yeah, 6 cost, uninkable, 6/3/2. It's got ward, and you can pay 3 to deal 1 damage to chosen damaged character. How good is that? I don't really know. The ward is nice, but the moment this exerts, it's probably gonna die. And paying 3 to deal 1, as we've seen, is again still pretty lackluster. And then the fact that it has to be a damaged character of all things is pretty bad. This can kind of pick off characters. So if a character is damaged and it only has 1 health left, willpower left, yes, you can use it to kind of finish it off. That's kind of cool, but I still don't think that's enough to make this card be really good. Looks more like a C level card. Could be fine, but I'm not that hype about this card. Do you have the, what is the enchanted? We don't know. Oh, does this not have an enchanted? Oh, maybe it's just not on here, but that's kind of interesting. Awkward. Yeah, I guess some of these don't have enchanteds. We might not have seen them yet, maybe. This card is one that a lot of people are excited for. We got Maui Half Shark, 6 cost inkable, 7/5/1. Evasive. And whenever this character challenges another character, you can return an action from your discard to your hand. So already that's really good. Just 7/5 evasive means it's going to be able to challenge and survive and probably kill whatever it challenged. And then just getting back something like a brawl, I don't know, really anything you can get back. Be prepared. In other colors, you could have stuff like, we don't talk about Bruno, grab your sword, just so many powerful actions. But then we have this wayfinding ability of whenever you play an action, you gain 1 lore. So a lot of people thinking about ways to kind of break this card. You have cheap actions like Develop Your Brain in Ruby Sapphire. There's so many. There's also the Robin Hood Sharpshooter deck that could be like, this card can be another addition to that kind of enables that deck to be a little bit more playable. So all these things are awesome. I do just want to preface it with, this card is slow. And what I mean by that is it comes down, it doesn't do a lot of stuff, and then you have to wait a whole turn cycle before it really does anything. But again, the 7/5 nature of the card means it's likely going to live, and the evasive part of the card means it's likely going to stay on the board. So assuming you can stabilize, or you can kind of play this at a time where you're not immediately going to lose the game, this card is going to get you a lot of value. You can play Maui, the next turn play Brawl, gain a lore, crash into something, get back a Brawl, replay the Brawl, kill another thing. That just sounds great. So this looks like an A, but again, with the caveat of it is a slower card than I think people are realizing. So just making sure that people are aware of that. But I love this card. I'm really excited to play with it. Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to love this guy. Next up, we got Hades Strong Arm. 5 cost, uninkable, 4/3/1. You can exert it and pay 3 to banish one of your characters, banish chosen character. This is like a C at best. This looks like an unplayable card. As we've seen, there's some of the characters or effects that do this. We just haven't seen a deck that can really make use of this right now. And again, the fact that this comes down, doesn't do anything, and you have to wait a whole turn before you can do this. It also costs ink. It's the 3 is fairly expensive. Yeah, not very flavorful card for Hades, especially Ruby Hades, but not excited to buy this card. This looks like a D at most, more like an F. So yeah, I can't believe I'm giving it feels really weird to give a legendary an F, but it just looks really underwhelming. All right, these are, again, the joke of this set was that it really seems like they just took Sapphire and said, here's everything, because we have so many cards that are just naturally going to work with Sapphire. So anyways, we have Oswald, the Lucky Rabbit. We actually saw this card earlier in the year because it was a D23 promo. So 2 costs, uninkable, 2/1/2. During your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, reveal the top card. If it's an item, you play it for free. I'm going to stop there. You play it for free. And it enters play exerted. Otherwise, the card goes to the bottom of your deck. So, holy moly, this card looks really, really strong. Again, it is fairly susceptible to removal. But as we've seen, the removal in Lorcana, especially in the early game, is a little bit lackluster. So you're likely going to be able to land this, and then the next turn, start inking cards. You can also play this on turn 3, by the way, and immediately ink a card, and immediately get some value off it. Again, you kind of got to get a little bit lucky. You have to build your deck in such a way where you do have enough items where you're consistently enough going to hit this. So Yeah. That being said, this looks like a B, kind of alongside of the cards like uh, Sail the Azurite Sea, and also like cards like Fishbone Quill, where they're good, but they're really only good in the particular decks. But yeah, a lot of people, again, trying to figure out ways to break this card. And my guess is they're going to be successful. Maybe not this set, but at the very least in the future, this card's going to do some gross things. Next up, we got the guy. Baymax Armored Companion, 5-cost inkable, 2/6/2. When you play this and whenever he quests, you may remove up to 2 damage from another chosen character of yours. Gain 1 lore for each damage removed this way. So very, very cool card. The fact that it can come down, immediately get you 2 lore, and next turn can kind of continue to do that and can even get you up to 4 lore from a single quest is pretty impressive. Susceptible to kind of the ruby removal that we've seen. But assuming there is a deck that can make this card work, ruby, like a ruby sapphire self-damage deck, just any deck that's kind of playing characters and challenging. This looks really, really strong. And the fact that it's inkable also, right? So in these kind of control decks, this can kind of be the win condition, but also it can just be inked to kind of avoid, those kind of awkward scenarios. So this looks like an A. It just looks like it's going to be so kind of like this, again, is kind of like the Sapphire version of Rapunzel. It's just, there's not a lot of scenarios where this card is super bad. Again, the strength on this card is a little bit low, but the fact that this can just come down, do a really powerful effect, and then can just kind of keep doing that. And doesn't really ask much of you. It just kind of asks that your cards have some damage on them, which if you're playing the game normally should happen. And it just has some characters with some high willpower, just challenge in, and you get some lore as well as dealing damage to your opponent's characters. So yeah, this looks like an A. Both of these, I think, were some of the highest rated cards we've got so far. These ones are pretty good too. So we've got Wreck-It Ralph Ham Hands, 6-cost uninkable, 4/4/3. Whenever this character quests, you may banish chosen item or location to gain 2 lore. So notably, it does not say your opponent's. It can be your own, and it can be your opponent's. This looks really strong. It is uninkable, and it is pretty expensive, but it looks like most decks are going to be able to slot this in at like 1 or 2 cost. At 1 or 2 copies, I should say. One or two of them in the deck. And this will be just a really strong card when it comes down. You can, again, banish your own popsicles if there's no items or location on the field, but if your Ruby Amethyst opponent tries to slam down a Queen's Castle, this is in your hand, yeah, they might get a lore to, like a couple of lore off of it, but this is going to be there to kind of snipe it. And if you ever play this ahead of a Ruby Amethyst player's Queen's Castle, that Queen's Castle is going right into the inkwell. So yeah, very cool that this is an aggressive, a good quester, right? It can gain 5 lore, which is nice. It is a little bit conditional, but also can kind of be that interactive. So even though it's uninkable, it's pretty good in most scenarios. So yeah, I would expect 1 to 2 copies in most steel decks. Next up, John Silver Stern Captain. 8-cost inkable, 6/6/2 for a Floodborn with all those texts. Every single John Silver is going to have all 4 of those types. So it's Shift 5, Resist 2. So already we've seen Resist 2, like we've seen on a card like Cinderella Stoutheart, is really good. And the start of your turn, you deal 1 damage to each opposing ready character. So even though it happens at the start of your turn, your opponent has to exert their characters or pay the price. So kind of taxing those ward characters, really, really good. And also kind of naturally working in the steel game plan of dealing damage. So if your opponent is afraid to quest because you have something like a Tinkerbell on board. This will slowly chip away, and if they choose to quest, and you have a Tinkerbell in hand, right, then all of a sudden you play it out, you use this to challenge and stuff, and yeah, just kind of naturally works with the Steel game plan. That being said, the Shift 5 is pretty expensive, and you definitely are not playing this for 8. So it's a question of what deck does this go in? Does this go in Sapphire Steel? Does this go in Emerald Steel? Or does this go in the Pirate deck as just a way to shift over top of your John Silver? That is unclear. What I do have confidence is that we're going to figure it out. Someone's going to figure out how to get this card into play, and it's going to be good. So I'm going to give this a B, just because, again, I expect to see play. I expect it to be strong. It's not an auto-include, but I definitely think that whatever deck figures out how to play this card will be strong in that deck. So whether that is aliens, pirates, or just some form of steel control that can get this out onto the board. All right, and I think that was every single one, right? Yeah. All right. So there we go. That is the every single card: commons, uncommons, rares, super rares, and legendaries. Again, not gonna review the enchanteds because they're the same, but they do look nice here. Let me see which ones we got here. Yeah, so they're going with this kind of map-ish looking art. Yeah, so no Maui. No Maui enchanted. That's kind of rough. That would have sold so many packs. But cool stuff like the Lipson staff getting enchanted here. Some cool actions. And I think there was a location. Yeah, the Sugar Rush. some interesting enchanteds here. Interested to see what these look like in paper. But yeah, there you go, guys. That was the entirety of Azurite C. And we'll probably do some deck building at some point. I'll show off one of the decks that I'm testing out at some point when I'm able to do that. So, all right, guys, that is gonna do it for me. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, subscribe. These take so much work to make, to edit, to build up the inclination to do this. So if you are watching on YouTube, make sure to do that. And all right. Thanks again for watching. See you guys in the next video.